Chapter 30:18. What kind of mutual destruction move was this? The black-robed man was stunned. Because the distance was too close and the red light from the explosion was too fast, he did not dodge and was hit by the red light. The dust on the snowfield settled. The black-robed man fell to the ground. His face was pale, and there were blood stains on the corner of his lips. His black robe was covered in dark patches. The red light that hit him was not the real red light, but blood plasma. The blood plasma shot directly on his body. The huge impact made him vomit blood and stained his robe. The price he paid for this attack was not small, and he suffered injuries that were neither light nor heavy. In Rongyue Tianlan had disappeared, and what appeared there was a broken puppet. The puppet was 2 feet tall, and should have been filled with blood. But at this moment, there was a hole in the puppet, and all the blood was sprayed out. It was like a deflated balloon. They were fooled. This Rongyue Tianlan was actually a fake. It should be a puppet made by Rongyue Tianlan. The black-robed man's fingers trembled. Huang Luqing was also stunned. She never thought that the net they had painstakingly set up was actually a fake person. If the one here was fake, then what about the real one? The black-robed man's figure flashed and went straight to the crack. Huang Luqing was stunned for a moment and also rushed over. The crack was still the same, but Ji Tianyue, who was originally imprisoned inside, was gone. The small platform was empty, not even a piece of cloth. The black-robed man clenched his fist and blue veins popped out. Huang Luqing was also speechless. They had set up a trap for Rongyue Tianlan, but they did not expect to be checkmated by Rongyue Tianlan. They had fallen into the trap of substituting one person for another. Rongyue Tianlan seemed to have seen through their plan, so he used a fake body to attract their attention while the real body sneaked into the ice crack to save the person. More importantly, when Rongyue Tianlan took the person away, he obviously cleaned up his aura. So Huang Luqing did not see when he took the person away, and did not know which direction he fled to. The black-robed man's coldness almost froze the ice crack. It doesn't matter if we can't find their aura. He will definitely send her back to Nantian Palace. Let's go there and stop him. Huang Luqing opened her mouth, but didn't say anything in the end. Only a hint of sadness flashed through her eyes. He understood that the Devil Master had already become obsessed with Ji Xinyu. If he could not find her, the Devil Master would not focus on recovering his powers and reorganizing the Great Cause. But so what if they found it? If he allowed that woman to stay by the Devil Lord's side, given her influence on the Devil Lord, he was afraid that the Devil Lord would not lead the Devil race to conquer the world again. It seemed that he had to find a way to quietly get rid of that woman completely, in order to completely remove the stumbling block. Huang Luqing's eyes flashed with a sharp glint. No matter what, he had to find Ji Xinyu through Rongyue Tianlan first. The two of them left like the wind, heading towards Nantian Palace. In fact, Ji Tianyue had been unconscious from the cold for a long time. She had endless nightmares and cold sweat broke out all over her body. When she finally broke free from the nightmare and woke up, she found herself in an inn. The bedding on her body was warm, and the one serving her was the lady boss of the inn. Seeing that she had woken up, the lady boss breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank God, you're finally awake. The young master who sent you here asked me to pass a letter." Chapter 30:19. She handed over a letter. Ji Tianyue was stunned. She seemed to have understood something. She took the letter with trembling hands and opened it. There were only a few words on it. "The promise has been fulfilled. From now on, you and I have nothing to do with each other. When your body recovers, the lady boss will send you back to Nantian Palace. Take care." The flamboyant words were written by Rongyue Ishinlin. The room was originally as warm as spring, but Ji Xinyue's body trembled slightly. She was lost in thought for a long time. Suddenly, she searched her body like a madwoman. The lady boss of the inn opened her eyes wide and looked at the little girl who was searching herself like a madwoman. Finally, she couldn't help but ask, "Miss, what are you looking for?" Ji Xinyue took out everything on her body. Even her storage space was turned upside down. She searched every nook and cranny. Nothing. Nothing at all. The sound transmission talisman that Rongyue Tianlan gave her was gone. Her face was ashen. She had used up all the opportunities that Rongyue Tianlan gave her. She had nothing to do with him anymore. She didn't even see him coming. She didn't even say a word to him. After all, she had been frozen in the ice crack for a day and a night. Frostbite had reached 80% of her body. Although she had woken up, her body was still very weak. The frostbite on her body also made her feel uncomfortable. How long was I unconscious? 3 days. How long has he been gone? Miss, are you asking about that gentleman? He left after putting you down. Ji Tianyue. The lady boss saw her face full of disappointment and thought for a moment before adding, that young master left some medicine for you, and I've been applying it for you these past few days. Fortunately, you have finally woken up. When will you go back? We can prepare a carriage. Ji Tianyue closed her eyes slightly. How far is this place from Nantian Palace? About a few hundred miles. Ji Tianyue carefully packed her things. She had many good things on her body, including countless gold, silver, and jewels. She was originally very doted on by the South Heaven Emperor, and the South Heaven Emperor gave her a lot of treasures. When she came across something rare, she would put it into her storage space. Now these things were all she had to make a living from now on. Naturally, she didn't want to go back to Nantian Palace. If she went back, she would be in the cold palace. Since she had already escaped by accident, she might as well wander the Jianghu alone. If her sister could do well in the Jianghu, she believed that she could do the same. She didn't believe that she could do worse than her elder sister. She clenched her fists and didn't notice the greedy gaze of the lady boss behind her when she saw the things she took out. In the end, Ji Tianyue was still a child with little experience in Jianghu. She committed a big taboo in Jianghu, not showing off one's wealth. Treasures move people's hearts. Any one of the jewels in her hands was worth tens of thousands of gold. A single treasure was enough for an ordinary person to live a rich life for the rest of their lives. Not to mention that she had so many of them with her. In fact, Rongyue Tianlan had left enough money for the lady boss. Not only could she live in this leisurely for a few months, but she also had enough money to send her back. Rongyue Tianlan was also afraid that she would harm a little girl. So before he left, he even smashed a big stone to threaten the lady boss, so that she wouldn't dare to have any evil intentions. His arrangement was not inappropriate. Originally, Ji Tianyue could have returned to the palace safely. But now, under the huge temptation, the lady boss was moved. Chapter 30:20. Xiejuk was extremely angry. He and Huang Luqing had been waiting in the shadows of Nantian Palace for 3 days, but they never saw the person they were waiting for. Not only did Rongyue Shenlin not come, but even Ji Tianyue did not come back. 3 days. Even if Rongyue Shenlin drove an old cow and a broken car, she could still send them back. It was obvious that Rongyue Shenlin had seen through their plan again, so she had hidden with Ji Tianyue. Perhaps she had already brought Ji Tianyue back to her secret residence. Now the two sisters had already met. Xiejuk clenched his fists again and again, resisting the urge to tear down Nantian Palace. He had been busy for so long and had planned for so long, but it was all for nothing. He was extremely depressed. At this moment, walking on the street, his entire body was filled with a coldness that kept people away. Huang Luqing had been silently following beside him. She knew that Xiejuk needed to vent. The two of them were extremely beautiful. Walking on the street like this was undoubtedly an eye-catching scene, attracting the affectionate gazes of countless women. When they passed by a brothel, the courtesans dressed in red and green upstairs could not help but throw handkerchiefs, flowers, and other things at them when they saw the two of them passing by. Demon Master, do you want to find a girl? Huang Luqing asked Xiejuk, as she casually brushed away a flower that almost hit her head. Tens of thousands of years ago, Xiejuk had been extremely dissolute, and had countless concubines by his side. He was a dissolute demon master. At that time, Huang Luqing could not stand his style, and had tried to persuade him a few times. She had even fallen out with him because of this. But she still could not stop Xiejuk's dissolute nature. Xiejuk and Huang Luqing had met when they were children. Xiejuk had accidentally saved Huang Luqing's life. In order to repay Xiejuk, Huang Luqing had stayed by his side. At first, she was his playmate, and later, she became his military advisor. Xie was a genius at cultivation. With Huang Liuqing's help, he quickly unified the demon world and became its master. Xie was quite kind when he was young. Perhaps it was because of the baptism of war and the countless assassinations and conspiracies that this once smart and kind child had become headstrong and arrogant. He had a very strong rebellious mentality. The more he was not allowed to do something, the more he wanted to do it. Huang Liuqing stopped him from spending time on women, but he just had to take a bunch of concubines back. There were so many women around him that it was impossible to count. Finally, he took in a female spy from the immortal realm. That woman knew his whereabouts and trajectory and sent it to the immortal realm, causing him to fall into a trap set by the immortal realm and be completely wiped out. And at that time, because Huang Liuqing had a falling out with him, she left him for half a year. Half a year later, she heard the news of him being killed by a group of immortals. After Huang had awakened, he had Juk, a demon master, had Huang Liuqing. He still remembered his back then Huang Liuqing. He looked at him coldly. Haven't you always been annoyed that I'm looking for women to have fun with? Huang Liuqing sighed and said, this subordinate would rather you return to your original dissolute nature. He raised his head and looked at the women upstairs. There was no lack of outstanding beauty among them. One of them even looked somewhat similar to Ji Shenyue. He raised his sleeve and pointed at the woman. Demon Master, how about that woman? The woman seemed to know that she had been pointed out. She immediately winked at the two of them, seductive and soul-stirring. Chapter 30-21. Xie looked up and frowned slightly. He coldly said, dirty. He raised his sleeve, and a faint green light shot toward the building. Those women were leaning against the railing of the building and stroking their hair coquettishly. After the green light flashed, the railing suddenly broke. Amidst ear-piercing screams, the group of women fell straight down from the third floor and fell to the ground like dumplings. Huang Liuqing. Such an unforeseen event naturally attracted a large number of onlookers, and the scene was a little chaotic. Huang Liuqing took the opportunity to leave with Xie. He could already tell that not only had Xie shattered the railing, but he had also broken the throat of the woman, who looked a little similar to Ji Shenyue. The other women might only be injured, but that woman would definitely die. The two of them quickly turned to another street. Huang Liuqing could not help but ask, why did you kill her? Xie voice was cold. She tarnished her appearance. How could he allow a woman who looked a little similar to Ji Shenyue to do that? Therefore, he had killed her without mercy. Huang Liuqing. He tightened his grip on the fan. Although Xie had a group of beauties by his side, he had never truly fallen in love with any woman. In his eyes, all the women in the world were tools to vent his desires. Now, although he had recovered Xie's memories and even his personality, his feelings for Ji Shenyue had not changed. In fact, his obsession had become even stronger. He would not stop until he got her. As the two of them walked, the sound of wings flapping suddenly came from above. The two of them looked up and saw a colorful bird flying past. Xie's feet suddenly stopped. This bird was the soul-seeking bird. The bird flew directly to a tea house on the street. On the third floor of the tea house, a woman in white was sitting by the window. The soul-seeking bird had landed on her shoulder and was chirping non-stop. The woman in white was extremely beautiful and had an otherworldly aura. She tilted her head as if listening to the bird. After a while, she smiled gently and stroked the bird's head with her fingers. Thank you for your hard work. Then, she took out a voice transmission talisman. A moment later, the call was connected. Rong Yuishinlin's voice came from the other side. Yunqi, you're back? Yunqi smiled sweetly. Yes, I just came back and brought you good news. Do you want to come over? The other side agreed very straightforwardly. Yes. Where are you? Yunqi told him her address before turning off the voice transmission talisman. Xie and Huang Liuqing looked at each other. This was really a case of wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it without any effort. They couldn't find Rongyue Tianlan's whereabouts, but now he had delivered himself to their doorstep. Lu Qing, Rongyue Tianlan is extremely cunning. We must not reveal our whereabouts in advance this time. It won't be too late to make a move when we confirm his lair, Xiejuk said. Huang Luqing tightened his grip on his fan. It had been a long time since he had heard Xiejuk call him by his name. He paused for a moment before saying, "Yes, let's hide our tracks first." These two people's kung fu was top-notch. Not only were they proficient in the art of transformation, but they were also proficient in the art of invisibility. Soon, they concealed their tracks and went upstairs. There were not many people in the tea house. There were many empty seats on the third floor. The two of them found a seat and sat down. This table was quite far from Yunqi's table. It was in a corner, and there was a screen in front of it. Usually, even if someone sat at this table, it would be easy to overlook it. Chapter 30-22. This time, Rongyue Tianlan wasn't slow. He arrived within an hour. His clothes fluttered as he appeared in front of Yunqi with a faint smile. "Yunqi, I've made you wait." Yunqi was clearly very familiar with him as she smiled, and called Rongyue Tianlan to sit down. Rongyue Tianlan's eyes fell on the bird and he asked, "How is it? Can it smell the aura of her soul?" Yunqi smiled and pushed a cup of tea over. "Don't worry, you rushed here in a hurry. You should drink a cup to moisten your throat first. I also just rushed here, and I'm very tired. Let me catch my breath, and I'll tell you in detail." Rongyue Tianlan shook his head. He knew that Yunqi liked to keep people in suspense. The more anxious you were, the calmer she would be to tease you. His eyes fell on Yunqi, and he saw that her pretty face was indeed a bit pale. Even the bird looked tired as it panted with its head down. He wanted to urge Yunqi to tell him the result, but seeing her like this, his heart softened. He sat down and drank some tea. He took out a shining sword from his spatial storage and placed it on the table before waving his hand at the bird. The bird immediately swooped down and pecked at the sword. In just a moment, it swallowed the divine weapon into its stomach. After eating the special food, the bird looked a lot more spirited. Yunqi gave a soft sigh as she turned the teacup in her hand to look at Rongyue Tianlan. "You're really willing to part with it. This sword is also a peerless divine weapon, right? If you let it eat like this, you'll spoil it. It's worth it." Rongyue Tianlan only said these 3 words as he stroked the bird's feathers. The bird rubbed its beak against his hand in satisfaction, to show its friendliness. "Tianlan, who is that Princess Jiyu? What is her relationship with Yi Qianshang?" Yunqi couldn't help asking out of curiosity. Rongyue Tianlan was drinking tea when his hand holding the teacup paused. After pondering for a bit, he gave a sigh. "It seems like you transmigrated to the past when they first met. You don't know the ending." Yunqi smiled. "It should be like this. That little princess is so cute. She was played around by Yi Qianshang." Rongyue Tianlan's fingers trembled, and a little of the tea spilled out. He lowered his eyes for a moment and sighed. Actually, he didn't fall in love with Jiyu at first. He was just using her. What happened next? Yunqi raised her eyebrows. "A lot of things happened after that. Let's not talk about these things anymore. You just need to know that she married him in the end. She is his most beloved wife." Yunqi's eyes widened as she blurted out, "She's your wife?" "It's her, Yi Qianshang's wife, the wife of my soul, not mine." Yunqi glared at him. "Isn't that the same? That part of your soul is also you. Tianlan, I didn't expect you to have a wife. You want the soul-searching bird to sniff out her aura, and then find her on this continent. How do you know that she reincarnated on this continent?" Rongyue Ishinlan raised her hand and rubbed the space between her eyebrows. She couldn't be bothered to explain to Yunqi the difference between his soul and hers. Yunqi continued to ask, "Do you want to find her and marry her?" Rongyue Ishinlan shook his head slightly. "Not necessarily, I just want to know if she is. That part of my soul has let her down. If I find her, I will protect her for the rest of her life. I won't necessarily marry her." He now deeply suspected that Jiyu was either Ji Xinyu or Ji Tianyu. It was even more likely that it was Ji Xinyu. Chapter 30-23. If it was confirmed that Ji Xinyu was Jiyu, then of course he would marry her. A good marriage of 2 lifetimes, he definitely couldn't let it go. If Ji Tianyu was Jiyu, then he would try to find a good husband for her. and let her live a happy life. It would be his compensation to her. And he would still marry Ji Shenyue. No matter what, she was the one he liked now. And she was the one who affected all his heart. The two of them talked for a while, and Rongyue Tianlan gave Yunqi some pills to recover as soon as possible. Yunqi rested for a while and stood up. You should have a target, right? Where is the first person you want to test? Rongyue Tianlan looked at her, and saw that her face was still a little pale. He pondered for a moment. She's not in this city. It's 800 miles away. Yunqi frowned slightly. So far, she hadn't recovered yet, and it was really difficult to ride a cloud for such a long distance. Rongyue Tianlan knew what she was worried about. Don't worry, I'll take you there. Yunqi smiled sweetly. Okay. The two of them went downstairs. Demon Master, should we follow them? Huang Luqing reminded Xiejuk, who had been in a daze. The light in Xiejuk's eyes was a little strange, as if he was excited and disdainful. He clenched his fists and suddenly sneered. So he's already married. Then how can he be worthy of Xinyu's love? He's not worthy at all. Xinyu deserves the best, and Xinyu's man must be loyal to her. Huang Luqing. Demon Master, the one marrying shouldn't be him, but one of his souls. If one of his souls marrying a wife wasn't worthy of Ji Shenyue, then the Demon Master had a bunch of women by his side back then. Of course, Huang Luqing didn't say these out loud. What's the difference? In the end, it's still him. And he obviously can't forget his feelings for that woman. And he's still trying to find her. He treats Xinyu well, because he treats her as that woman's substitute. Xiejuk fiercely retorted. Huang Luqing didn't want to argue with him and sighed. Demon Master is right. Should we follow them? Follow. Of course. I want to see who Rongyue Tianlan's so-called wife is. We'll reach Fenghua City after passing through this forest. She's staying in the second room on the third floor of the Tian Kulai Inn in Fenghua City. Rongyue Tianlan instructed Yunqi, who was on the same cloud as him. Yunqi was playing with the bird. She nodded and replied, all right. Then, she tilted her head and looked at him. Aren't you going? Rongyue Tian said. Let's use the soul-searching bird to identify it first. If Ji Tianyue was still Jiyu, he would naturally go down to meet her again. Of course, it wasn't to rekindle their old relationship, but to send her back to Southern Heaven Palace. Then, he would greet Southern Heaven Emperor, and tell him not to mistreat her anymore. He would ensure that she would live a carefree life. If not, then Ji Tianyue was a stranger to him, and he didn't need to take any responsibility for her. He had already done all he could for her. Although she was Ji Shenyu's little sister, a little sister who always wanted to harm her elder sister. Haha, let me go. Woo-woo, let go of me. Help. Ah. The shrill cry of a woman came from the forest. When she shouted for the third time, something seemed to be stuck in her throat. She couldn't shout anymore, and could only let out a whimper. Haha, this place is deserted. Little girl, you've made me happy enough. I can even let you go more comfortably. Chapter 30-24. Chaotic noises could be heard from below. It was obvious that there was a robbery and murder going on below. Rongyue Tianlan's expression changed. Not good. She turned the cloud around and rushed downwards. In the depths of the forest, Ji Tianyue's clothes were torn, and she was pressed down by a fierce-looking man. The man was pulling her underwear. Ji Tianyue's face was full of tears. She seemed to want to struggle desperately, but her acupoints were sealed, and she could not move at all. She could only open her eyes wide, and despair filled her eyes. There was a short man standing next to her. The short man was impatient. Third brother, let's get her things out quickly and leave. I feel a little creepy. The fierce-looking man laughed grimly. Big brother, we have to kill her to get the things she hid in the storage space. The short man frowned. After all, it's a human life. We can force her to take out everything. The fierce-looking man sneered. Big brother, don't you know the phrase cut the weeds and dig up the roots? If we let her go now, she will report it to the authorities in the future. He laughed grimly again. Besides, I haven't touched such a delicate little beauty for a long time. How can I not play to my heart's content? Don't worry, no one will come here easily. We can do whatever we want. He tore off Ji Tianyue's underwear with a swish. The short man looked at Ji Tianyue, who was almost fully exposed, and greed appeared in his eyes. He finally made up his mind. Okay, third brother, when you're done, it's my turn. The fierce-looking man laughed as he untied his pants. Good, that's a brother. I know that you've been controlled by that bitch for a long time. When you and I are done playing, we'll take out her things. You can take some back, and we'll divide the rest between us. We can still be free and unfettered. If you can't do it, you can go back and divorce that fierce bitch of yours. When we're rich, we can play with any woman we want in the future. Why should we do things according to that fierce bitch of yours? As he spoke, he had already pounced on Ji Tianyue, who was lying there. Little lady, I'm coming. He did not pounce on Ji Tianyue's body. Instead, his body was lifted up by a strong force and directly hit a big tree beside him. He did have some kung fu. At the critical moment, he desperately turned his body in the air. Originally, he was going to hit the tree with his head, but after turning his body, he hit the tree with his legs. He usually practiced martial arts with his legs. Even an iron pillar would be broken by his legs. He believed that if his legs collided with a tree, it would definitely be the tree that would fall. Crack. A sound that made one's teeth ache rang out, followed by a blood-curdling scream that tore through the air. He fell to the ground. He had no pants, and his legs were broken into 17 or 18 pieces, showing an extremely strange twist. His face was twisted in pain, and he was almost rolling on the ground. As for the short man, he didn't see his brother's miserable state. He flew out earlier than his brother, and was directly swept away by a huge force, crashing into a tree and dying. The ferocious-looking man forced his eyes open, and saw a blue-robed man and a white-robed woman landing on the ground. This was the last thing he saw because another beam of blue light came and slammed him into the ground. The blue-robed man and the white-robed woman were naturally Rong Yuishinlin and Yunxi. The scene in front of her was too unbearable. Rong Yuishinlin directly slapped the bodies of the two filthy men into the ground and buried them. Chapter 30-25. Not only did Yunxi unseal Ji Tianyue's acupoints, but she also draped a white cloak over her to cover her embarrassment. Ji Tianyue was probably scared out of her wits. Her little face was pale, and her body was trembling nonstop. Yunxi finally saw her face clearly. Her fingers, which were draping the cloak over her, froze. Ji Tianyue's head was dizzy. At this moment, there was no one else in her sight except Rong Yuishinlin, who was standing not far away. Her lips trembled for a long time before she called out, "Brother Rongyue." Tears streamed down her face. She pushed Yunxi away and wanted to throw herself into Rong Yuishinlin's arms. Rong Yuishinlin had not expected that she would be plotted against here. When he saw her throwing herself at him, he waved his sleeve. Ji Tianyue stood 10 feet away from him. She could not throw herself at him anymore. Ji Tianyue's face was pale as she looked at him. "Brother Rongyue." The veins on Rong Yuishinlin's temples throbbed. "How did you end up like this?" Ji Tianyue burst into tears. "I didn't want to go back to the palace, so I wanted to look for you after I recovered. In the end, the lady boss said that it was not safe for a young lady like me, so she asked her man to send me. Who would have thought that when I walked here, his brothers would jump out? They wanted money and killed, and... What money? Did you expose the jewelry on your body? How did they find out?" Ji Tianyue lowered her head. I took out the things in my storage space in front of the lady boss." Rong Yuishinlin was speechless. He only had one word for this, pig. Ji Tianyue's face was pale as she continued. "I clearly said that I would give them all the jewelry on my body, but they still... Brother Rongyue, fortunately you came in time. Otherwise, Tianyue's life would have been ruined." She cried like a begonia in the rain. But Rong Yuishinlin had a headache. He did not comfort Ji Tianyue anymore. Instead, he looked directly at Yunxi. Yunxi understood and patted the soul-searching bird on her shoulder. The soul-searching bird chirped. It flew up, circled around Ji Tianyue, then flew back and landed on Yunxi's shoulder. Rong Yuishinlin's heart tightened. He stared at Yunxi, his eyes full of questions. Yunxi and the bird talked for a while. The soul-searching bird shook its head like a rattle drum. Yunqi shook her head slightly at Rongyue Tianlan. She wasn't. She was not Jiyu. She was really not Jiyu. Rongyue Tian heaved a long sigh of relief. Rongyue Shenlin left with Yunqi again. This time, he left without any worries. Leaving Ji Tianyue crying in the forest. Out of humanitarianism, Rongyue Tianlan unsealed Ji Tianyue's acupoints before ascending. Yunqi also left a set of clothes for the little girl, so that she could change into them later. Ji Tianyue watched them leave, and cried uncontrollably. She finally understood that she and Rongyue Tianlan were not fated to be together. Why? Why won't you like me? How am I worse than my sister? Ji Tianyue's heart was filled with injustice and unwillingness. She clenched her small fists tightly. Obviously my dance is the best, and my appearance is better than hers. You are not as good as her in any aspect. You are not even fit to carry her shoes. A cold voice suddenly came from a big tree. Ji Tianyue was shocked. She raised her head abruptly, and saw a man in a black robe standing on the treetop. The man's long hair hung down like a curtain, covering half of his face. He looked like a demon in the dark night. Chapter 30:26. Although half of his face was exposed, people couldn't see his face clearly. They could only feel that this man was extremely beautiful, and there was an indescribable charm in his coldness. This man had a strong pressure, and that invisible force made Ji Tianyue almost unable to raise her head. You, who are you? She swore that this was the first time she saw this man, but she felt that he was a little familiar. That man's thin lips slightly hooked. You don't deserve to know who I am. His figure flashed, and like a bat he flew down. Ji Tianyue suddenly seemed to recognize him, and took a few steps back. You are the one who kidnapped me into the ice crack. You want to use me to threaten him? He won't be fooled again. She was panicked and scared, and was already stuttering. The man in the black robe smiled. That's why I said you are useless. Useless people usually only have one ending. He slowly stretched out his palm towards her. That cold aura made Ji Tianyue's body feel like it was about to be frozen. Her martial arts had clearly recovered, but under that cold aura, her body was stiff, and she couldn't even retreat. The man in the black robe's palm was as white as jade, and his fingertips were round and slender, and it fell on her shoulder. Ji Tianyue also knew that it was a moment of life and death. She was so scared that her teeth were chattering, and she desperately said, Don't kill me. I can give you everything I have. The man in the black robe's eyes flashed slightly. Everything? Yes, including my body. Please don't kill me. I can do everything for you. Ji Tianyue was almost scared to the point of peeing, making random wishes. Very good, then die for me. The man in the black robe's palm flashed with a black light. A moment later, the living Ji Tianyue disappeared, and only a skeleton was left in the white cloak, no longer fresh and delicate. Someone behind sighed faintly. Why kill her? She's just a waste. You won't be able to increase your power by much by sucking her. The man in the black robe slowly withdrew his hand, as if he found it dirty, and then used a handkerchief to wipe his hand, and then threw the handkerchief away, and said indifferently, I've long found her unpleasant to the eye. For Ji Shenyu? Huang Luqing sighed. Humph. The black-robed man snorted, leaped up, and said to Huang Luqing, I'll chase after them, you clean up this place. He disappeared in the blink of an eye. Huang Luqing shook her head, looked at the skeleton on the ground and sighed. You shouldn't have schemed against my sister after obtaining benefits from her. She is his bottom line. He casually dug a deep hole in the ground, and threw the skeleton into it. The forest regained its tranquility. Even the soil on the ground didn't seem to have been stirred. However, the three of them had lost their lives in silence. Tianlan, that little girl really looks exactly like Jiyu. I didn't expect that it wasn't. Yunqi couldn't help but sigh as she sat on the cloud. Rongyue Tian smiled and didn't say anything. He was relieved of a huge burden in his heart, and felt very relaxed. Whether or not Ji Shenyu was Jiyu was no longer important. It was fine as long as Ji Tianyue was not. He really could not accept that the woman he once loved would have such a personality. Fortunately, it wasn't. Do you think that little girl will be robbed again? after being thrown into the forest. Yunqi was still a little worried. Rong Yuetian shook his head. It's hard to say. It depends on whether she has a memory or not. Chapter 30:27. Rong Yuishenlin shook his head. It's hard to say. It all depends on whether or not she has a good memory. If she keeps a low profile in the future, she shouldn't suffer too much in the world of martial arts. Her martial arts are actually quite good. It shouldn't be a problem for her to deal with ordinary martial artists. The reason she suffered a great loss this time was because the lady boss used some kind of bone-softening powder on her. She can't use most of her martial arts. I've already helped her neutralize the drug, so there shouldn't be any more problems. Yunqi nodded. I hope so. She looked up ahead. Where are we going now? Carefree Island. Rong Yuishenlin spat out 3 words. Yunqi's eyes widened. Isn't your Carefree Island on the Heavenly Bestowal continent? There's one here. Yunqi smiled. It seems that the second person you wanted me to check is there. What if she isn't you? Rong Yuishenlin's voice was light. Nothing. Whether or not she is Jiyu, I will marry her. Yunqi. So you have a sweetheart here. Congratulations, congratulations. Then I should take a look at her, and see just what sort of woman can catch the eye of our Sir Rong Yuishenlin. She's very outstanding. Rong Yuishenlin generously praised. His heart had already flown back to Carefree Island. 5 days had passed, and she shouldn't have fully recovered. She was definitely still on his island. She must be angry that he had locked her up there. She might even fight him as soon as they met. Her angry appearance flashed through his mind, and a warm current flowed through his heart. After not seeing her for just a few days, he already missed her. He didn't know if she missed him or not. Fortunately, they were about to meet again. He was lost in thought for a moment and no longer spoke. Yunqi sat on the clouds, hugging her knees and not speaking. She was also lost in thought. Of the carefree 3 immortals, 2 of them already had sweethearts. She was the only one left who was all alone. Xiejuk and Huang Luqing didn't dare to get too close to the 2 people in front of them. Rong Yuishenlin was too shrewd and cunning. His martial arts were also strong. As long as they weren't careful, they might be discovered by him. Once he noticed them, he would definitely lead them into a ditch. Therefore, they followed from a distance. Because they were far away, they couldn't hear what the 2 people in front of them were talking about. However, Xiejuk was not interested in the conversation between the 2 of them. He only wanted to know Ji Xinyu's whereabouts and find her. The 2 of them were walking in silence when the sound transmission talisman on Huang Liuqing's waist suddenly lit up. He raised his hand to pick it up. A moment later, he closed the voice transmission talisman and reported to Xiejuk in a low voice. Demon Master. They've all been arranged. Shall we go now? Xiejuk was stunned, and a complicated light flashed in his eyes. He shook his head slightly. I'll find Rongyue Tianlan's lair first, then I'll go to them. It had not been easy for him to follow Rongyue Tianlan, and he did not want to fail at the last moment. Xiejuk was stunned and said anxiously, Devil Master, it's not easy to form that formation. I'm afraid that something unexpected will happen if we delay. Now that we know that Ji Xinyu is safe, she will come out sooner or later. At that time, it won't be difficult for Devil Master to meet her. However, once you miss this formation or something unexpected happens, it will be extremely difficult for Devil Master to recover all his martial arts. I'm afraid that he won't be able to recover even after 100 years of cultivation. Moreover, once the news of Devil Master's arrival is leaked, those immortal sects will definitely not let Devil Master off. At that time, not to mention capturing the beauty's heart, it will be difficult for Devil Master to survive. Chapter 30:28. He tried his best to analyze the pros and cons for Xiejuk, so how could Xiejuk not understand? But he took a deep breath. I'll go once I see where he's hiding. This was the biggest concession he could make. Huang Luqing. He knew that he couldn't persuade him anymore, so he could only use a voice transmission talisman to contact the other side and ask them to wait for another day. Rong Yuishenlin predicted that she would recover all her martial arts in 8 days. In the end, Ji Xinyu gritted her teeth and trained crazily. She recovered in 4 days. The moment she recovered, she almost wanted to laugh 3 times. Sister has finally recovered. Finally. I don't have to stay here alone in the cold wind anymore. The moment she recovered her martial arts, she immediately picked up the moon god's sword and ran to the beach. Then, she tried the method Rong Yuishenlin taught her. Sure enough, she easily opened the barrier, and a whirlpool appeared in front of her. She was overjoyed. Just as she was about to jump into the whirlpool, she turned around to look. In fact, the environment here was quite beautiful. Now that she was about to leave, she actually felt a little nostalgic. However, she was still in a hurry to get out. Rong Yuishenlin's island was very good, but it was really boring to be alone here. When she wasn't cultivating, there wasn't even anyone to talk to. No matter how beautiful the scenery was, it would be boring if no one enjoyed it. Moreover, she was still thinking about her senior and junior brothers in the Ziyun sect. In the end, she jumped into the whirlpool without looking back. She would come here again if she had the chance in the future. Right now, it was more important to get down to business. She left the island smoothly. When her feet landed on the shore, she looked back at the surging waves of the sea and laughed loudly. She was out. She was finally out. She looked at herself. Her peach red shirt was like a brilliant red cloud. The first thing she did when she left the island was to look for her voice transmission talisman. Very good. Rong Yuishenlin didn't lie to her. She really found her things in the location he said. A few voice transmission talismans lay in her palm. They were colorful and exceptionally beautiful. Different colors represented different people to contact. White represented her master, yellow represented the South Heaven Emperor, and the other colors represented her senior and junior brothers, and the friends she made when she was traveling in the Jianghu. For example, the blue one that looked like a star represented Rong Yuishenlin. The voice transmission talisman was formed by combining the telekinesis of both parties. Therefore, those who could communicate with each other through the voice transmission talisman were usually the most trustworthy and closest people. Ji Xinyue looked at the sound transmission talisman in her hand and discovered that there was an additional blood-red one. Furthermore, the appearance of this voice transmission talisman was different from other voice transmission talismans. The other voice transmission talismans were all in the shape of a 5-pointed star, but this one was in the shape of an octagon. It lay in her palm like a red bean. She moved closer to her nose and sniffed. Her heart skipped a beat. Rong Yue Tianlan's aura. Obviously, Rong Yue Tianlan had left this for her. He had already left her a blue one. What did he mean by giving her this blood-red one? Perhaps he had mistakenly mixed in the sound-transmitting talisman that he used to communicate with others. In that case, she would just return it to him when she saw him in the future. She put away the voice transmission talisman and took out the talisman that represented her eldest senior brother. She cast a spell and connected the call. Eldest senior brother seemed to be a little busy. The voice-transmitting talisman flashed for a full 5 minutes before he picked it up. Ji Xinyue first asked about the situation over there. Eldest senior brother replied casually, "Very good. It has always been very good." Ji Xinyue listened attentively. She felt that it was a little noisy over there, as if there were a lot of people. She couldn't help but ask. Chapter 30-29. Eldest senior brother laughed. "Yes, I'm teaching your martial nephews. You know, these little disciples have always been lively. Alright Shenyu, I still have to teach them. I'll talk to you later." The sound transmission talisman hung up. Ji Shenyu did not suspect anything. Although her eldest senior brother was cold on the outside, he was not cold-hearted. He had taken in many disciples, and all of them were good talents. When he was free, he would often personally teach them martial arts. Since the sect was fine, Ji Shenyu was temporarily relieved. She took out a purple sound transmission talisman and weighed it in her palm. This sound transmission talisman was connected to Xie Fenglu. Should she contact him? See where he was? So many days had passed. Had he become another person? What devil master? Her fingers clenched slightly. Until now, she still could not believe that her lively and cheerful little junior brother was the incarnation of that great devil. She closed her eyes. and threw the sound transmission talisman into her storage space. It could be said that she was running away, or that she could not bear to, but she did not want to contact this little junior brother for the time being. She thought for a moment, then contacted eldest senior brother again, and asked about Xie Fengliu's situation. Eldest senior brother's tone was very calm. He said that Xie Fengliu had indeed gone back, and even presented a moonlight pearl to Master, which Master liked very much. Ji Xinyu's heart sank. She said jokingly, "I went with him to get this pearl. He didn't mention me." She did not want to take any credit. It was just that when Xie Fengliu went to get this pearl, she was lying in the ice shell, her life and death unknown. If Xie Fengliu did not become a devil, the first thing he should have done when he returned to the Purple Cloud sect was to tell Master, and then ask Master to save her. That was the right thing to do. Eldest senior brother thought for a while and said, "That's right." Ninth brother said that after you took the bead with him, you went to another place to do something. We know that little junior sister has always liked to wander the Jianghu, and has a lot of things to do, so we did not ask again. Ninth junior brother did not mention it again either. Ji Xinyu paused for a moment then smiled. "I see. Then have you heard any news about old Ninth recently?" Eldest senior brother asked. "What news?" Ji Xinyu paused again. After all, she wasn't 100% sure yet, so she couldn't say it out loud. After thinking for a while he said, "I'll tell you about this matter in detail when I get back. In short, you have to guard against him, and the people around him." Eldest senior brother wanted to ask more, but Ji Xinyu had already hung up. She decided to talk to them in detail when she returned. After all, it wasn't that convenient to talk about it through a sound transmission talisman. In the end, she finally took out the blue voice transmission talisman, and her lips curled into a smug smile. Rongyu Tianlan thought that she would only come out on the 8th day, but she came out 3 days earlier. Would he be surprised if she contacted him now? Would he find her amazing? Just as he was about to open the voice transmission talisman, he paused. She contacted him as soon as she came out, as if she couldn't wait to see him. He must be very proud. She raised her hand, and threw the blue voice transmission talisman into her storage space. She felt that Rongyu Tianlan would probably go back on the 8th day. Once he returned to the island, and found that she was not there, he would naturally guess that she had gone out. At that time, his expression would definitely be very good. Ji Xinyu seemed to be able to see Rongyu Tianlan's flustered and exasperated expression in front of her eyes. Her eyelashes curved as she smiled smugly. Chapter 30:30. After she came out, she first checked her body. Her inner breath was flowing vigorously, and her body was as light as the wind. Her telekinesis had indeed fully recovered, and even strengthened a little. She waved her hand and summoned the Shura saber, and practiced a round of saber techniques in the small forest. Very good. Although she had been sitting on the island for 5 days, her saber techniques did not fall behind at all. When she started to wield it, it was so vigorous. She had to admit that Rongyu Tianlan's small treehouse was really a good place for healing. She had been injured so many times, but this time she recovered the fastest and the best. Even the scars on her body were not obvious. If one did not look carefully, they would not be seen at all. Not only was her face beautiful now, but her body was also becoming beautiful. Originally, she only wanted to keep her face from being too injured, so that she would not scare people when she went out. But now she could not help but pay attention to her body. After she finished practicing her saber techniques, she ran to a small lake not far away to look at her reflection. The lake water was like a mirror, reflecting the girl in it. Her cheeks were slightly red, and her eyes were smiling, like a budding peach blossom. She turned her head and asked the moon god sword beside her, "How was the saber technique I used just now?" The moon god sword gave her a very pertinent comment, "Overflowing with spring." Ji Xinyu was speechless. She slapped the moon god sword away, and the aura of a tomboy reappeared in the martial arts world. "Get lost, what nonsense." The moon god sword felt wronged. "You look like a girl in love now." Ji Xinyu's hand shook, and the sword was slapped even further away. A girl in love. She was now an old girl. She had truly become an adult at 1,000 years old. Her two sisters had married at 1,000 years old, and she was the only one who was still unmarried at 3,000 years old. In Ji Xinyue's heart, only girls around 1,000 years old, who were about to reach adulthood, would be young girls in love. For someone like her, even if she was in love, she would be a girl in love. She had nothing to do with the word young. When did she agree with this in love? The moon god sword looked at her cheeks that were getting redder and redder. Are you shy? Shy your head. Ji Xinyue picked up the 8 trigram sword, and with a shake of her hand, she threw it straight into the lake. Before the sword entered the water, it passed her a message. Your thoughts were exposed, and you became angry out of humiliation. Ji Xinyue. Could she give the 8 trigram sword away? The island that Rongyue Tianlan was on was quite far from the Purple Cloud sect, about 2,000 to 3,000 miles away. Ji Xinyue had to fly for a day before she could get back. Of course, if she used the ability to travel 1,000 miles in an instant, she would be able to arrive within 2 hours. However, that would consume too much psyche power. There might be a tough battle waiting for her, so there was no need to waste her precious psyche power on rushing. During the journey, she even stayed in a hotel once. The journey was carefree. When she arrived at the Purple Cloud sect, it was already the evening of the next day. It was also at this time that Rongyi Yuishinlin brought Yunqi back to Carefree Island. As soon as Ji Xinyue arrived at the Purple Cloud sect, she noticed that the atmosphere was not quite right. The atmosphere in the Xian sect was a little tense. Her fellow disciples, except for Xie Fenglu, had all rushed back. Moreover, all of them had rushed back with their elite disciples. Not only that, but there were also some outsiders in the Purple Cloud sect. Each of these outsiders was an outstanding talent of the Sanskrit continent, and they all had one or more unique skills. Experts usually had a bit of arrogance, and more or less had the bad habit of being arrogant because of their abilities. These outsiders were no exception. The little martial nephews who lived in the Purple Cloud sect and ordered Ji Xinyue around were quite comfortable. Chapter 30-31. When Ji Xinyue arrived, she saw these people practicing a kind of array in the big square of the Purple Cloud sect. Ji Xinyue was very knowledgeable about arrays, but she had never seen anything like this. The disciples and the experts were wearing different colored robes, forming a 6-pointed star array. They were moving around in groups, with all kinds of lights flashing from time to time. The Purple Cloud sect master didn't take in disciples easily. He had very high requirements for the aptitude of his disciples, so his disciples were all elites of the elites. Any one of them was a big shot in the Fanning continent. Moreover, he had a problem with taking in disciples according to the 6 attributes. Perhaps it was because people had lived for too long that they became a little bored. So other than Feng Wuji, the Purple Cloud sect master's eldest disciple, the other disciples were all of a single attribute. For example, the second senior brother was of the metal attribute, the third senior brother was of the wood attribute, and the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh senior brothers were of the water, fire, earth and thunder attributes respectively. Usually, after taking in disciples of one attribute, he wouldn't take in disciples of the same attribute, no matter how good the aptitude of the person who wanted to be his disciple was. The Purple Cloud sect master was of a full attribute, so he taught these disciples different attributes of martial arts. According to him, this was called specialization, and it was easy to become a talent. The Purple Cloud sect master's method of taking in disciples was quite good. Ji Xinyue and the other senior brothers of a single attribute all cultivated their attributes to perfection. In terms of the strength of a single attribute, no cultivator in the Fanning continent could surpass them. However, there were still drawbacks to cultivating a single attribute martial arts, because the battlefield was ever-changing, and you didn't know what kind of enemy you would encounter. If the enemy you met could be countered, then you would naturally win a big victory. If the enemy countered you, then you could only passively take a beating. If the enemy's attribute was related to your attribute, then it would be even more tragic. Even if the enemy was a second-rate character, with a move from you, he could still be a first-rate character. For example, If the second senior brother of the metal attribute met an enemy of the water attribute, even if the enemy's martial arts were far inferior to the second senior brother, the second senior brother would definitely not be a match for him. Moreover, there weren't many people who cultivated a single attribute on this continent. Most of them had more than 2 attribute skills. Once someone saw your attribute and used the corresponding attribute to fight, you would only be beaten up. Therefore, it was still very risky to practice this kind of kung fu with only one attribute. Because these disciples of a single attribute had all made a vow to sect Master Ziyin, before they entered the sect, that they would only accept disciples of the same attribute as their disciples in the future. Therefore, the disciples of these senior brothers were all disciples of a single attribute. At this moment, they were wearing robes that corresponded to their attributes, and were circling around in the formation according to their own rules. It was quite a beautiful sight to behold from the air. It was rare for the outer sect experts to cultivate a single attribute. Although their robes were the same color as the disciples, there were a few shining silver lines on the sleeves of their robes, indicating their noble status. To be honest, when Ji Xinyue saw the people running in formation, she was a little confused. She didn't understand what was going on. Could it be that Master, who always liked to hunt for novelties, had come up with a new trick to relieve his boredom? But wasn't it a little too grand to let so many people participate? Ji Xinyu looked around again. Then she found that at the various passes of the Purple Cloud sect, there were disciples of different attributes guarding them. They all looked serious, as if they were facing a great enemy. Chapter 30-32. Something had indeed happened in the sect. Ji Xinyue thought for a moment, but did not go to find her master and eldest senior brother. Instead, she landed in front of a disciple. This disciple was Feng Wuji's disciple. He was usually smart and quick-witted. No matter what happened in the sect, he would be the first to know. Therefore, Ji Xinyue could easily find out what had happened in Ziyin's sect from him. The Beast Valley was bathed in blood by an unknown force. The animals inside were sucked dry and turned into skeletons. Even the 2 disciples who were guarding the Beast Valley had disappeared. Everyone suspected that they had been killed by the blood-sucking monster. The blood-sucking monster might have already escaped from the valley. The sect master of the Purple Cloud sect, and the eldest disciple left behind to guard the sect, had already turned the sect upside down. But they could not find any trace of the blood-sucking monster. However, the disciples of the Purple Cloud sect were disappearing one after another, causing everyone to be in a state of panic. Only then did their master call all the disciples back. The disciples then followed their master's instructions and asked for help. As for the formation outside, it was said to be an ancient demon-slaying formation that could kill all evil spirits. Once this formation was officially activated, the blood-sucking monster would have nowhere to hide and would automatically appear in the formation. In the end, it would be destroyed by the immortal chi of the formation. There was actually a demon-slaying formation with such a function? She had never heard her master mention it before. She then looked at the formation that was being rehearsed. Indeed, there were all kinds of immortal chi, especially the center of the formation, where all kinds of immortal chi gathered. There was a 6-colored light in that place. It was very beautiful. The disciples and experts below had been rehearsing. Their techniques were becoming more and more skillful, and their power was increasing. For some reason, Ji Xinyue felt that there was something strange about this formation. However, she could not pinpoint what was strange about it. She looked at the formation in a daze for a moment. Just as she was about to go find her master and eldest senior brother, the 2 of them appeared from the east. Eldest senior brother raised a flag and waved it. This was a signal to end the rehearsal. Only then did the disciples disperse under the leadership of their respective masters. They all came forward to pay their respects to sect master Ziyin and Feng Wuji. The external help that they invited naturally heaved a sigh of relief. Although they were of noble status, they were still sect master Ziyin's juniors. They also came forward to exchange a few pleasantries. Sect master Ziyin said a few comforting words and asked everyone to take a rest and recover their energy. The official opening time of the array would only be announced after he had carefully calculated it. However, it would not be later than tomorrow morning at the latest. Everyone was indeed a little tired, but they were all very excited. They were filled with curiosity and hostility towards the blood-sucking monsters that would appear after the array was activated. Especially the friends of the missing disciples, they couldn't help but feel their blood boiling. They couldn't wait to activate the array, so that they could kill the blood-sucking monsters and avenge their friends. After everyone left, the foreign aide was also invited to the guest room by Feng Wuji to rest. The huge martial arts field regained its calm. The martial arts field of the Purple Cloud sect was very expensive. It was paved with 6 colored jade stones. The jade here was very rare in the entire Fanning continent, and any piece could be sold for a high price. However, there was a martial arts field here that could accommodate thousands of people. Its value was immeasurable. Initially, every time Ji Xinyu came to this training field, she felt that her master really knew how to burn money, and was willing to spend it all. She had once asked her master the reason, and her master had thought about it. Chapter 30-33. She had once asked her master the reason. Her master thought for a moment, then patted her head and asked, "Don't you think that this kind of jade in the martial arts field shows our Purple Cloud sect's magnanimity?" Ji Xinyu was speechless. Magnanimity. Indeed, magnanimity. Those who came to the Purple Cloud sect, because of its reputation, were all amazed by this martial arts field, feeling that it was very spectacular and shocking. They were all racking their brains to join the Purple Cloud sect. Thus, the Purple Cloud sect never lacked good disciples to join. Every time they recruited new disciples, the sect would be as crowded as a marketplace, and this made the Purple Cloud sect more and more prosperous. Ji Xinyu had always felt that this jade martial arts field was the facade of the Purple Cloud sect, although she had always wondered why her master didn't use these jade stones to build the main gate of the Purple Cloud sect. Wouldn't that make it look more imposing and show off in front of more people? However, she still understood her master, because her master had always been an unpredictable person. Even his beloved disciple, Ji Xinyu, couldn't figure him out. No matter what shocking things he did, Ji Xinyu wouldn't find it too strange, and she was already used to it. At this moment, the Purple Cloud sect's master was standing in the large square, looking up at the setting sun in the sky. As if he was lost in thought, Ji Xinyu rarely saw her master with such an expression, as if there was something very heavy on his mind that he couldn't resolve. Was her master sad for those innocent disciples who died in vain? Or was he worried about tomorrow's battle? Ji Xinyu's blood surged as she appeared in front of her master. "Master, Xinyu is back. I'm willing to share your worries." The Purple Cloud sect's master seemed to be startled, and took a step back. Looking at his little disciple who was obviously travel-worn but had bright eyes, he rubbed his forehead. "Impudent, suddenly jumping out like this. Do you want to see your master's shocked expression?" With his usual reprimanding tone, his eyes were filled with genuine concern. He looked at her. "Oh, you look a bit thin. Who made you unhappy?" Ji Xinyu's heart warmed. In this world, only her master cared about her so much, even more than her father. The fatherly love she lacked from her father seemed to have been compensated by the Purple Cloud sect's master. In her heart, she had always treated the Purple Cloud sect's master as her father. The Purple Cloud sect's master patted her shoulder and looked into her eyes. "Why do you look like you're about to cry? Were you really bullied?" Ji Xinyu shook her head. She tried to hold it in, but she couldn't hold it in any longer and finally opened her mouth. "Master, I've heard about the sex matters from the disciples below. This disciple suspects that." He paused here. "What are you suspecting?" Sect Master Ziyin pulled her to a high platform and sat down. Ji Xinyu thought for a moment, then steeled her heart and said, "Disciple suspects that it's Little Nine. Little Nine is playing tricks." Grandmaster Ziyin had just conjured 2 cups of tea, and was about to pass one to her when he heard her words. His fingers paused and the tea spilled a little. "Are you suspecting your own junior brother?" Ji Xinyu sat there hugging her knees. She was in a very conflicted mood, but she still said word by word, "Master, disciple is as close to him as a brother. I really don't want to doubt him, but..." but I am more than 50% sure. Actually, she still said too little. She was 90% sure now. Sect Master Ziyin was silent for a moment and sighed. Little 8, tell me your reason. Because of the importance of this matter, Ji Xinyue did not want to hide anything from her master. So she told her master about what had happened to her and Xie Fenglu in the celestial crystal ocean. Chapter 30-34. Of course, she also briefly mentioned how Rongyue Tianlan had saved her. However, she did not mention the exact location of Rongyue Tianlan's island. She only said that she had been cultivating in the place where he lived in seclusion for the past few days. Sect Master Zi Yun did not speak for a long time. After a moment he said, Xinyue, you said that little Jiu was controlled by Huang Qinglu in the sea, and that was why he stabbed you. Ji Xinyue nodded. It should be. He was obviously being controlled at that time. Huang Qinglu also called him Xie Juk. Sect Master Zi Yun sighed and said, there was indeed a devil master called Xie Juk 30,000 years ago. However, he was besieged by a group of immortals, and his soul had completely dissipated. Logically speaking, it is impossible for him to come back to life. Perhaps Huang Qinglu only called out that name to make you lose your mind, so that the controlled little Jiu could successfully sneak attack you? Ji Xinyue nodded. Disciple also thought so that day, so I am not sure. However, since he has already returned and met Master, why didn't he mention this matter and ask Master to save me? Sect Master Ziyin shook his head slightly. I can't guess this at the moment. Perhaps little Jiu has another way to save you. After all, the ice cover that Huang Qinglu sealed you, actually Master can't break it. It can only be solved by the person who tied the bell. In other words, only Huang Qinglu can break it. Rongyue Tianlan is an anomaly and cannot be counted. Ji Xinyue. What Master said seemed to make sense. In fact, she also did not want Xie Fenglu to be Xie Juk. She subconsciously rejected this inference. Presumably, Master was the same. So when he heard this news, his first reaction was to refute it. However, after combining all the information, Ji Xinyue vaguely felt that Xie Fenglu was Xie Juk's incarnation. After all, many things could not be explained by coincidence. For example, on the night Xie Fenglu and Huang Luqing returned, the matter of the blood-sucking monster happened in the Purple Cloud sect. Master, have you been in contact with little Jiu these days? Sect Master Ziyin nodded. I have been in contact. There is nothing unusual. Then he's still with Huang Qinglu? Sect Master Ziyun's handsome face was dignified. Master didn't ask, but since Huang Qinglu controlled him to attack you, and little 9 hasn't revealed a word to the sect until now, there are only two possibilities. First, he is still not sure whether others can break the cover, so he pretended to deal with Huang Qinglu to avoid alerting the enemy. Secondly, he is that demon master Xie Juk, and he is currently busy trying to restore his original body. However, I feel that the possibility of the second possibility is not too high. You also know little 9's temperament. After all, she is mischievous and lively. As for Xie Juk, I heard that this person's temper is cold and irritable, and he's bloodthirsty. It's almost the complete opposite of little Jiu's personality. It's really not similar. No matter what, this matter is of great importance. I will thoroughly investigate this matter and give you an explanation. Ji Xinyue said. Master, there's no need to explain anything to disciple. Disciple suffering a loss is a small matter, but Demon Master Xie Juk's revival is a big matter. Once he succeeds in reviving, I'm afraid he will bring a storm of blood to this continent. Disciple also hopes that little Jiu is not Xie Juk, and that everything is Huang Qinglu's doing. Sect Master Ziyin casually handed her a cup of tea. Perhaps this Huang Qinglu is not simple. I will investigate this matter carefully. Xinyue, this matter is no small matter. Before there is a clear conclusion, do not leak any information to anyone. Chapter 30-35. Her master's request was not excessive. After all, it involves Xie Fenglu. He was Sect Master Ziyun's beloved disciple, and Ji Xinyue's favorite junior brother. If news of this spread in advance, It would definitely set off a huge wave in the entire Fanning continent. Xie Fenglu would be hunted down by all the immortals in the Fanning continent. If it was proven that Xie Fenglu was wronged, and that he was not Xie Zhuk, then it would be too unfair to him. No one would spread the news just because they suspected that their family had committed a crime. Therefore, Sect Master Ziyun's request was very reasonable, and Ji Xinyue would do the same. If she wasn't facing her most trusted master this time, she wouldn't have said it. She nodded and naturally agreed. Sect Master Ziyun patted her shoulder. No matter what, there will be a result tomorrow. You're also tired, go back and rest well. Only when you have recovered your spirit can you share my worries. Sect Master Ziyun turned and left. The sun was already halfway down, and his back had an inexplicable sense of desolation. Ji Xinyue held the half-drunk cup of tea, and sat there for a while before standing up. As soon as she stood up, her body swayed slightly. Then she slowly fell down. A figure flashed from the darkness, and caught her as she was about to fall to the ground. He lifted her up and looked down at her, a complicated look in his eyes. Xinyu, you're too tired. You should rest well. Master has no other choice. No matter what, Master will not harm you. I will ensure your safety, and not let you suffer any real harm. Go to sleep. When you wake up, you will find that this world is still the same as before. Nothing has changed. Ji Xinyue laid in his arms, her long eyelashes slightly closed. She had completely fallen asleep. It was already late at night, and a few stars fell from the sky. There was only one entrance to the Beast Valley. The other places were all cliffs, and were sealed by layers of barriers, so there was no way to enter or exit. At the entrance of the Beast Valley was a shiny golden mirror. The mirror had complicated spell patterns on it, and layers of light flashed on the surface of the mirror. This mirror was the famous demon-revealing mirror in the Fanning continent. Once a demonic creature entered or exited the valley, this mirror would alarm and emit thousands of rays of golden light, more beautiful than fireworks. Because of this mirror, people didn't have to worry about any monsters sneaking in and out of the valley. This demon-revealing mirror was Sect Master Ziyun's most prized possession. Over the years that he had been in possession of this mirror, countless devils who had disguised themselves as ordinary people had been exposed and killed by the immortals. When the mirror was mentioned, the immortals of the Fanning continent all praised it. However, the people of the Devil Dao hated and feared the mirror. They did everything they could to destroy it. Over the years, there were a few devils who risked their lives to steal the mirror and destroy it, but they all died before they could succeed. They were all killed by the Sect Master Ziyun, who was jealous of the devils and had powerful magic power. After a while, no one dared to have any ideas about the mirror anymore. Tonight, it was Ji Xinyu's third senior brother's turn to guard the mirror. This third senior brother had always been cautious and conscientious in his work. As long as it was a task given to him, he would definitely complete it with quality and quantity. He would never go off on his own to fool others. Just like now, on the eve of the great battle, all the participants had already rested. Both the inside and outside of the valley were quiet. Only the occasional long howl of the beasts in the Beast Valley made the night seem even quieter and deeper. Third senior brother sat on a blue stone at the entrance of the valley. Although he was very tired, he was still full of energy. Chapter 30-36. The four disciples he was most proud of were by his side. The few of them had been chatting to get rid of their sleepiness, and naturally, they talked about the blood-sucking monster. They were all guessing what the blood-sucking monster looked like. The young disciples' imagination was abnormally rich. They imagined the blood-sucking monster to have all kinds of ferocious appearances, such as 3 heads and 6 arms, a head like a basket, and fangs that were a few feet long. A gust of wind suddenly blew from afar, brushing past them and blowing straight into the Beast Valley. The night wind was rather cold, and these disciples were in the middle of discussing terrifying things. When the wind blew, they shivered. A disciple crossed his arms and looked at the entrance of the valley. Why did I feel like something flew past just now? When he said this, everyone felt goosebumps appear on their skin. No way. No way. I didn't see anything. Could it be that the other party used an invisibility technique? Third senior brother was a little absent-minded just now. When he heard the disciple's words, he first looked at the demon-revealing mirror. There was nothing unusual on it. He waved his hand. Don't make wild guesses. What kind of person is there? It's impossible for people from the celestial world to enter this valley with invisibility. If a demon wants to enter or leave, regardless of whether he's invisible or not, this mirror will warn him. What just blew past was just a gust of wind. The disciples heaved a sigh of relief and stopped talking about the previous topic. Instead, they started to gossip about men. Third senior brother was a little absent-minded as he looked at the demon-revealing mirror. When that gust of wind blew past, there was a faint fragrance. It seemed to be the fragrance on little junior sister's body. But it shouldn't be little junior sister, right? Didn't she already rest? He knew from the other disciples that little junior sister had returned, and he excitedly ran to her courtyard to visit her. However, he met his master at the entrance of the courtyard. Sect Master Ziyin told him that Ji Xinyue was tired from the journey and had suffered some injuries. She was resting now, and asked him not to disturb her. If there was anything else, he should wait until tomorrow. Since his master said so, he could only return. Did he miss little junior sister too much? So when a gust of wind blew past, he could smell little junior sister's scent. He sighed and continued to sit there and guard. However, knowing that little junior sister had returned, he was even more confident in winning tomorrow's battle. Who was little junior sister? Her avatar was Xinyu, one of the top 3 experts in the Fanning continent. She was a classic example of the student surpassing the master. Her martial arts were even slightly stronger than the sect head of Ziyin. With her back, what demons and ghosts couldn't be exterminated? The Beast Valley was filled with mountains and dense forests. A black shadow shuttled back and forth in the valley, as if it was looking for something. Suddenly, the black shadow stopped at a mountain ridge. In the night, her eyes were as deep as the stars. This person was Ji Xinyu. She had never thought that her master, whom she had always trusted and loved her like a father, would plot against her. Therefore, when she was chatting with her master, she did drink the tea that her master had spiked. It was only when she stood up and felt dizzy that she realized that something was wrong. Fortunately, when he was with Rongyue Tianlan, he had taught her the kung fu to cure the knockout drug. Therefore, she immediately activated that kung fu at the moment when she was about to faint. Once this kung fu was activated, it would not stop even if the person was unconscious. Sect Master Ziyun's knockout drug was supposed to make her sleep for a day and a night, but she only slept for 4 hours before waking up. Chapter 30-37. When she woke up, she was a little confused, but she reacted quickly. She was stunned for a moment and didn't know what to feel. She first sensed her body. Her inner breath was normal, and all her physiological functions were normal. She even felt that the blood in her body was more active. In other words, the drug that her master gave her only had the effect of making her unconscious. It wouldn't cause any harm to her body, and even had the effect of nourishing her blood. Before she fainted, she vaguely heard her master's words. She didn't hear the whole thing, but she still heard the sentence, "I won't let you suffer any harm." It seemed that he really didn't want to harm her. But why did he drug her for no reason? Did he not want her to think too much and nourish her spirit? Or was her master hiding something important from her? Or was her master from the demonic sect? When the last thought popped up, she immediately pushed it back down. How could it be? Her master hated the demonic sect the most. He would kill everyone he saw. Who knew how many demons had died in his hands over the years? How could he be from the demonic sect? Anyone could be from the demonic sect, but her master couldn't be. She must be crazy to think of this possibility. But her master's original attitude towards the demonic disciples was that he would rather kill 1,000 by mistake than let one go. But now, Xiaojie was obviously a big suspect, yet her master could calmly analyze and deal with it. Was it because Xiaojie was his beloved disciple? He didn't believe that his disciple was a demon, so he could calm down and investigate thoroughly? The more Ji Xinyu thought about it, the more her head hurt. She subconsciously didn't want to suspect her master. Maybe her master did have other secrets? And he didn't want her to worry about these secrets, so, although she kept comforting herself, she was still a little nervous. She felt that something big was about to happen, but she couldn't find any clues. She thought of Rongyue Tianlan, and her heart moved. He was the only one who knew part of the inside story, and he had always been meticulous. Maybe she should discuss it with him. She was the kind of person who would do what she thought. She immediately took out her voice transmission talisman. But when she took it out, she was stunned. Her other voice transmission talismans were all there, but the blue one that contacted Rongyue Tianlan was missing. She didn't give up, and looked through the storage space again. She even searched every nook and cranny, but she still couldn't find the voice transmission talisman. Could it be that he had accidentally lost the voice transmission talisman when he took it out to check last time? That's impossible, right? She clearly remembered that she had personally put the voice transmission talisman into her storage space. As for the things that were placed in the storage space, unless someone with a stronger psychokinesis came to retrieve them, it was impossible for them to lose it. She searched her room again, and even searched every nook and cranny of her bed, but there was no sign of the voice transmission talisman. She finally gave up. It seemed like she had lost it. Her gaze landed on the blood-red sound-transmitting talisman. This belonged to Rongyue Tian. Could she use it to contact him? She immediately tried to activate the red sound-transmitting talisman. But after a while, the red sound-transmitting talisman didn't budge at all. It was obvious that this was a special kind of sound-transmitting talisman, which couldn't be activated by ordinary means. If it wasn't her own voice transmission talisman, it would be super troublesome to use. She would need to decipher some things. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to decipher it without 6 to 10 hours. Moreover, she didn't know who was connected to the other side. Perhaps it was one of Rongyue Tianlan's friends. Chapter 30-38. Now is not the time to study this. She threw the sound transmission talisman back into the storage space and decided to rely on herself. She was an expert at finding clues. When she was roaming the Jianghu, she had helped the government solve some difficult cases, so she had experience. Since this kind of accident happened in the Beast Valley, there must be some clues left in the valley. She had to go look for them. She stood up and looked outside, and found that there were disciples patrolling outside her courtyard. She didn't want to suspect her master, but at this moment, she was still a little cautious, so she made some arrangements in her room before she went out. With her current martial arts, it wasn't too difficult to sneak into the Beast Valley without anyone noticing. A superb invisibility technique would do the trick. The sky was very dark, and only a few stars twinkled, but her night vision was excellent, and looking for clues was no different from looking in the daytime. The situation here was very different from what she had heard from her martial nephews. More than half of the animals here were gone, 2/3 of them. And the ones that were missing were all abnormally fierce beasts. Because the animals here were gifts that Sect Master Zi Yun received for his birthday, they were all intelligent, and some were even about to cultivate into humans. The last time she came, she had seen a few fierce beasts that had already taken over the mountains as kings. They came and went with the wind, lightning flashed and thunder roared. But now, not a single one of these fierce beasts could be seen. Occasionally, a young wolf or something would jump out from the grass, and after looking at her in shock like a rabbit, it would quickly disappear into the forest. The air was faintly filled with resentment, and the mountain wind whistled, as if the resentful spirits of the fierce beasts were crying. Ji Xinyu went straight to the shadow of the mountain, where there was a beast that she had been thinking about. Ji Xinyu arrived at an extremely remote corner. There was a cave here. The cave was narrow, only enough for a child to enter. The path inside the cave twisted and turned, and at the end of the cave was a crystal world. There were rows of black crystals of various heights, and in the middle of these crystals, a little fox had once been trapped, a little fox with ink-black fur. When Ji Xinyu was young, she accidentally entered the Beast Valley, and was chased by a fierce beast, so she hid in this cave. Who would have thought that the ferocious beast had already transformed into its human form, and had actually shrunk its body and chased after them? At that time, Ji Xinyu had no way out, and had frantically run all the way into the crystal cave. In the end, when the ferocious beast reached the entrance of the cave, it seemed to have smelled something dangerous, and turned around to run away. Ji Xinyu's life was saved. At that time, she was also on tenterhooks. She thought that there was some ferocious beast hiding here, but she didn't dare to go out. She was sure that the beast that chased her was still waiting outside, eyeing her covetously. Just as he was feeling conflicted, he heard snoring coming from the crystal pillar not far away. Children were all curious. She carried her little heart and slowly walked over to take a look. In the end, she saw a little black fox. It was the size of a puppy, curled up and sleeping soundly. Children had no immunity to these furry and round little animals, so Ji Xinyu couldn't help but move closer. She didn't expect that her feet would be uneven, so she tripped and directly pounced on the little fox like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. The little fox was woken up by her. It opened its pitch-black and watery eyes and looked at her. It even let out a spoiled whimper, which directly melted Ji Xinyu's little heart. Chapter 30-39. Thus, she and the little fox stayed in the crystal cave for half a day and became good friends. She smoothed the little fox's fur and told it her stories. The little fox just lay there and listened to her attentively. She didn't know if it understood her. After half a day, Ji Xinyu guessed that the beast had left. She also remembered that her master was looking for her, so she wanted to leave. She couldn't bear to part with the little fox, and wanted to take it away. However, after carrying it for a few steps, the little fox in her arms would be pulled back to its original place by an unknown force once it exceeded a certain distance. Later, Ji Xinyu found that the little fox's front paw was tied to a thin chain as thick as a hair. She thought of all ways to break the chain but couldn't. In the end, she could only solemnly promise the little fox that she would think of a way to help it regain its freedom. The little fox looked at her with a pair of teary eyes, and even used its little paw to grab a strand of fur to give her as a gift. After she kept the fox's fur, she reluctantly said goodbye to the little fox. It was strange. When she entered the valley, no matter how careful she was, she still encountered many man-eating beasts. However, when she left the valley, those beasts fled in all directions when she arrived. The beast that had chased her before had been guarding the entrance of the cave. When she came out, it pounced directly at her. However, before it could reach her, it suddenly turned around and ran as if it had been greatly frightened. It ran without knowing where it was going, and even hit a big rock and broke its leg. She smoothly left the valley. After she left, she was locked up by her master for a month, because she had broken into the forbidden area. A month later, when she came out to chat with her master, she learned from her master that the chain was called the meteoric iron chain. It was a kind of immortal treasure, other than the owner of the meteoric iron chain. If anyone wanted to break the chain, they would have to find a divine weapon that was also made of meteoric iron. There wasn't a single divine weapon made of meteoric iron in the entire Sanine continent, so Ji Xinyu could only temporarily give up on the idea of saving the little fox. Because of the strict management of the Purple Cloud sect, Ji Xinyu couldn't go to the Beast Valley for a long time. When she could go again, she had already grown into a slender girl. She found the cave and the little fox. At that time, the little fox was in a coma, curled up into a fur ball and snoring loudly. She couldn't wake it up. She tried to break the chain again, but to no avail. Over the years, she had sneaked into the Beast Valley more than a dozen times. Every time she went in to see the little fox, it was snoring loudly, as if sleeping away 1,000 worries. Because Ji Xinyu had not been able to find a weapon forged from meteoric iron, she had not been able to bring it out. Under normal circumstances, the things trapped by immortal magical artifacts were usually extremely ferocious fiendish demons. Later on, when Ji Xinyu became sensible, she had also thought that this little fox might be a devil, but she had tested it several times, and did not find any devil chi on its body. Moreover, the little fox looked adorable, and had kindly given her a strand of fur to use as an amulet, so it shouldn't be something ominous. At most, She would be the king of the beasts, because as long as she wore this strand of hair, all the beasts in the mountains would flee at the mere sight of her. The reason she fought for the moon god's sword this time was to save this little fox. Right now, she was thinking about it the most, but even after searching through the entire crystal cave, she still couldn't find the little fox. Even the chain was gone. There were only 3 possibilities for such a situation to occur. First, the little fox had finally been rescued by someone and was now hiding somewhere in the valley. Chapter 30-40. Second, it was the king of beasts and had been eaten by that blood-sucking monster. Third, it was that blood-sucking monster and had finally regained its freedom. She carefully searched the crystal cave for a while. The little fox shouldn't be able to break free from that chain. If it had been cut off by someone, then there should be another piece of chain on the ground. Ji Shenyu had already dug 3 feet into the ground, but she couldn't find the broken chain. There was only one possibility for this to happen. The meteoric iron chain had been broken by its original owner. Since the meteoric iron chain was an immortal treasure, then its owner should be an immortal, right? Could it be that the little fox was fated to have this tribulation, and now that the tribulation was over, that person had broken it? Countless thoughts spun in her mind, but she couldn't find an answer. The moon god's sword came out of her storage space. I can smell the meteoric iron chain's aura. Ji Shenyu's eyes lit up and she pulled it out. Then smell if anyone else has been here. Also smell the little fox's aura and follow its aura to find where it is. Moon god's sword. Are you treating me like a hunting dog? Ji Shenyu immediately stroked its fur. Darling, you're much more precious than a hunting dog. I never thought that you would have this kind of skill. You're truly too skilled. The moon god's sword was very obedient. It felt very comfortable with praise. Especially when Ji Shenyu called it darling. It immediately felt good, but it still proudly said, I'm a divine sword, don't call me something so corny. While it was filling Ji Shenyu's mind, it leisurely walked around the crystal cave, and then reported to Ji Shenyu. Xie Fenglu and Huang Qinglu came here. There's their aura here. Ji Shenyu's finger slightly trembled. Then, where's the little fox? The moon god's sword shook its tip and circled around where the little fox had been. Strange. The little fox didn't have any aura. It didn't move at all. It disappeared into thin air. There were only 2 possibilities for it to disappear into thin air. One was that it had been eaten by someone, and the other was that the little fox had turned into a human. Ji Shenyu took in a breath. Let's go out and take a look. After leaving the cave, the moon god's sword told her that there was only a stranger's aura, not the little fox or Xie Fengliu's. Stranger? Yes, that stranger's aura is very strange, as if he is somewhat weak. He was carried away by Huang Qinglu. Ji Shenyu immediately ordered the moon god's sword. Then follow their qi and see where they went. The sensitivity of the moon god's sword to aura was 10,000 times stronger than a hunting dog. Actually, Huang and Xie had already left for a few days, and the smell of this place had already been completely blown away by the mountain wind. No matter how powerful a hunting dog was, it would not be able to find people based on smell, but the moon god's sword was able to easily find them. A quarter of an hour later, it had followed the aura and brought Ji Shenyu to a hillside. The location of this hillside was actually very well hidden. It was surrounded by mountain peaks on all sides, and was a standard basin. If not for the moon god's sword leading the way, Ji Shenyu would definitely not have found this place. And here, Ji Shenyu found a few beast skeletons. Because the surrounding mountain peaks were like a screen, even the wind couldn't blow in. Therefore, these skeletons stood there quietly, as if they had been frozen by time. Chapter 30-41. Master, they died 7 days ago. Moon god's sword reported. Ji Shenyu nodded. That was when Huang and Xie returned to the purple cloud sect. Moon god's sword flew to the center of the hill and turned around. After Huang Qinglu brought the stranger here, he put him here. Ji Shenyu patted the sword's hilt to encourage it. It was so considerate to have this sword by her side. It helped her a lot, and saved her a lot of trouble. She looked around and her heart skipped a beat. Those skeletons seemed to be standing in a disorderly manner, but upon closer inspection, they seemed to be standing in some kind of formation. She carefully compared them, and her heart sank. These skeletons were standing in 6 different directions, faintly forming the shape of a hexagram. And looking at their movements, they seemed to be attacking the center of the hexagram before stopping. Their flesh and blood were sucked dry, leaving only skin and bones. Ji Shenyu suddenly felt a great sense of panic. She seemed to have understood something, but she couldn't believe it. Her fingers trembled slightly. She quickly checked the skeletons and recognized their species. These species were all different. There was a dual-winged salamander, a single-winged black lion, a flood dragon, and even a bird that looked like a vermilion bird. It was obvious that the bird was of the fire attribute, and the flood dragon was of the water attribute. As for the dual-winged salamander, it was a gift from Ji Shenyu to his master. He had fought with it before, and knew that it was of the earth attribute. The single-winged black lion was of the metal attribute. These animals were of different attributes and stood in different positions. They were all standing in positions that were beneficial to their attributes. For example, the bird stood in the south. It was of the fire attribute. Ji Shenyu suppressed the panic in her heart and checked the overall shape of the hill. Her body trembled slightly. This hill was very similar to the Purple Cloud sect's martial arts field. The only difference was that the hill was filled with colorful stones, while the Purple Cloud sect was paved with colorful jade stones. Of course, if one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't find any similarities between the two. After all, one was as exquisite as the Jade Lake, while the other was just an irregular hill. Ji Shenyu's eyes flashed with the martial arts field's formation. It was also a hexagram, and the disciples of different attributes stood in different positions. That array was exactly the same as the one formed by the ferocious beasts on the hillside. These ferocious beasts were already psychic. Some of their intelligence was even higher than a human's, and some of them could even transform. They could summon the wind, rain, and lightning. However, their intelligence was different after all. The probability of them automatically forming a formation to attack people was almost zero. Furthermore, even someone as knowledgeable as Ji Shenyu had never seen the ancient array before, so it was even more impossible for these beasts to have seen it. There was only one possibility for such a situation. These ferocious beasts were controlled by someone and formed into this array. Then their flesh and blood were sucked dry. What about his senior martial brothers and junior martial nephews? If they used the same array to attack the blood-sucking monster, would they be sucked dry as well? Ji Shenyu felt as if her entire body had fallen into an ice cave. She felt a chill from head to toe. If that was the case, what kind of role did her master Ziyin play? She didn't even dare to think about it. Her master? He was most likely a member of the demon sect and Xiejuk's subordinate. That formation was not a demon-subduing formation. It was very likely that it was a formation that helped Demon Master Xiejuk become a true demon. They were just throwing their lives away. What should she do? Chapter 3042. Xiejuk did not follow them all the way to Rongyuishinlan's carefree island. This was because the two people who had been flying in front of him stopped midway and went directly to a restaurant in the city below to eat and drink. This made Xiejuk very irritable. He wished he could kick the two of them up and continue on his way. The sky was already dark, but the two of them still had no intention of getting up. Especially that Yunqi. When Xiejuk usually saw her eating, he felt that she was elegant and quiet, a role model. But now when he saw her eating, he felt that she was deliberately showing off, and was not heroic at all. Most importantly, he felt that she ate too slowly. In his anxiety, Xiejuk wanted to set the restaurant on fire, and use extreme methods to bombard the two of them. However, before he could release the fire, Huang Qinglu, who had been following him, suddenly walked over and told him a piece of good news. Ji Shenyu had returned to the Purple Cloud sect. This news excited Xiejuk more than any other news. He still didn't believe it. He opened the sound transmission talisman and contacted the other side. Finally, he confirmed the authenticity of the news. Ji Shenyu had indeed returned. He naturally no longer had the heart to follow Rongyuishinlan. With a sneer, he immediately rode a cloud away. He originally wanted to use the instant speed technique, but Huang Luqing told him that he still had a tough battle to fight tomorrow. He could not waste his mind power for no reason, so he needed to use an ordinary flight technique to fly back. However, Xie was eager to return. In the end, Huang Luqing thought of a compromise. The mermaid race also had a kind of teleportation technique. Although it could not compare to the immortal race's instant speed technique, it was still much faster than ordinary flight techniques. It could take him 4 hours to reach his destination. Xie agreed. When he and Huang Luqing arrived at the Purple Cloud sect, it was already the middle of the night. With their martial arts and familiarity with the terrain, it was very easy for them to sneak into the Purple Cloud sect silently. As soon as he returned, he did not bother to exchange pleasantries with the people here, and went straight to Ji Xinyue's courtyard. He had to see her with his own eyes before he could truly feel at ease. At the door, Sect Master Ziyin stopped him. This was the second time the master and disciple had met after Xie returned to his true form. Sect Master Ziyin looked at him with a slightly complicated gaze. Then, he lowered his eyes and said his only condition. "Young master, Xinyu does not know anything. I have already made her unconscious. She will only wake up in 2 days. By then, everything will have been settled. I just need to tidy things up properly. She will not discover anything. Young master, you cannot harm her." Xie glanced at him and said indifferently, "I have my reasons. Don't worry." He turned around and entered the house. Sect Master Ziyun's eyes dimmed. The Devil Lord had awakened, but his mischievous little disciple had disappeared. Was this what he wanted? He was still worried. Just as he was about to follow in to take a look, he saw Xie rush out with a livid expression. "She's not in the house at all." Sect Master Ziyun's expression changed drastically. "Impossible. I saw her outside the window just now." As he spoke, he also rushed into the house. Ji Shenyu's boudoir was warm, just like when he carried her in, but she was nowhere to be seen. Instead, there was a new doll on her bed, quietly lying on her bed. Xie followed him in. A spell was used on this doll. If you don't look carefully, you'll think that she's lying in the blanket. I just lifted the bed curtain and found that something was wrong. Had she been kidnapped? Or did she escape? Logically speaking, the drug he used on her should not have failed. There was almost no possibility of her escaping. Chapter 3043. Huang Luqing silently walked around the room and came to a conclusion. She left on her own. No one took her away. No one doubted Huang Luqing's deduction because he was Sharkman and could follow a person's aura to find them. He was also the military advisor of the devil race. What he deduced was not false. She left on her own? Then there was only one possibility. She had found some clues and went out to investigate. Huang Luqing took a deep breath and said, "Young master, I'm afraid the situation has changed. If Ji Shenyue tells anyone about young master, I'm afraid the array won't be able to be opened smoothly tomorrow. The only thing we can do now is to open the array in advance and let young master recover in case of any accidents." Sect Master Ziyin frowned slightly. It was not easy to open this array. Even if all the people were in place, it would take 4 hours to open it. It was not something that could be opened immediately. When he mentioned the difficulty, Huang Luqing also frowned. Others are easy to deal with, but that Rongyue Tianlan is not easy to deal with. If Ji Shenyue tells him what she heard here, I'm afraid he will come immediately. If he comes to mess things up, our plan will fail. Xie clenched his fingers slightly. He did not doubt this. That Rongyue Tianlan was not an ordinary person. Sect Master Ziyin said, "Don't worry about this. I have the voice transmission talisman that Xinyu used to contact him. Before you arrived, Rongyue Tianlan had already tried to contact her. I pretended to be her and answered it, calming him down. Rongyue Tianlan will not suspect anything. He will not come for a while." He paused again. From his tone, he will come here to look for her the day after tomorrow, so he will not ruin our plan. Huang Luqing heaved a sigh of relief and urged Xie, "Young master, why don't we ask Ziyin to call everyone to set up the array now? Xiejuk's face was as cold as iron. No need, find her first. Young master, I have made up my mind. There is no need to say anything more. Besides, isn't this array the most effective when it is opened at noon? Then we should still act according to the original plan. Tomorrow morning, we will gather and set up the array at noon. Huang Luqing follow her aura and search. It was late at night, and third senior martial brother was sitting on the big green rock, watching over the demon-revealing mirror not far away. Suddenly, a figure flashed and eldest senior martial brother Feng Wuji walked over. He spoke straightforwardly. Third brother, you still have to fight tomorrow, so I'll keep watch for the rest of the night. You should quickly go back and rest. Eldest senior brother is so considerate. Third senior brother and his disciples had a look of gratitude in their eyes. Since they were brothers, there was no need to be too courteous. Therefore, third senior brother and his disciples quickly left. The entrance of the Beast Valley returned to its peaceful state. After the group of people had left, Feng Wuji walked up to the demon-revealing mirror and slowly took it off and kept it in his storage space. At the same time, Xiejuk and Huang Luqing appeared at the entrance of the valley. She entered the valley. Huang Liuqing's tone was incomparably certain. Xiejuk paused for a moment and did not say anything. With a flash he entered the valley. Within the Beast Valley, Ji Xunyue stood in the middle of the array. Yu Shunjian saw that her face was extremely pale, and that she was standing there like a wooden person in a daze. He was a little puzzled. He touched her fingers, and found that her fingers were as cold as ice. He was shocked. What's wrong with you? Ji Xunyue trembled, as if she had been struck by lightning and jumped up. No. Chapter 30-44. Ji Xunyue trembled as if she had been struck by lightning and jumped up. No. Yu Shun sword. Ji Xunyue ignored Yu Shun sword's confusion and took out a sound transmission talisman with trembling hands. This sound transmission talisman was connected to her third senior brother. She subconsciously wanted to open it, but her fingers paused. What role did these senior martial brothers of hers play in this earth-shattering conspiracy? What if they all knew and only hid it from her? No, third senior brother will also go to battle tomorrow. This matter concerns his life and death. He can't be involved. He should be a pawn that will be sacrificed. She steeled herself and opened the sound transmission talisman. The other side quickly picked up. Little junior sister? Why aren't you asleep yet? His tone was naturally filled with joy and concern. Ji Xunyue didn't know why, but her heart ached. Little junior sister, why are you looking for me at this time? Her short silence made third senior brother a little worried. Ji Xunyue didn't know where to start, so she first asked. Third senior brother, where are you? I just returned to my room and was about to rest. Little junior sister, do you need something? If there's something, I'll come to your courtyard to find you. Ah, I heard you were on duty at the entrance of the valley. Did you change shifts? Ji Xunyue originally wanted to say it through the sound transmission talisman, but she felt that it wasn't convenient to say such a big thing through the sound transmission talisman. She might as well call third senior brother to another place to have a good chat. Yes, there's a big battle tomorrow. Eldest senior brother was afraid that I would be too tired and not be able to rest well, so he replaced me just now. Now that he's guarding the entrance of the valley, nothing will go wrong. Ji Xunyue's heart sank. She felt that there was something wrong with eldest senior brother, but she didn't dare to be sure. Taking another breath, she decided to go straight to the point. Third senior brother, there's something wrong with the array tomorrow. Just as she said this, a light suddenly flashed and the sound transmission talisman in Ji Xunyue's palm flew out like lightning and closed. She was shocked and quickly raised her head to see a black-robed person standing not far from her. The black robe was like the night, his hair like a curtain, satin down to his ankles. He wore a hood on his head, hiding his face in the shadow of the hood, making people couldn't see his face, but they felt a chill from the bottom of their hearts. Huang Qinglu was also standing not far behind him. Her eyes seemed to contain an unfathomable smile as she looked at her and slowly said, "What's wrong with that array formation?" Ji Xunyue abruptly took a step back, then another step back, looking at Huang Qinglu. then at the black-robed man, her palms sweating. Her gaze turned to the black-robed man. "Little Jiao?" The black-robed man slowly raised his head. His long hair parted like satin, revealing his slightly pale face, and a pair of eyes that were as deep as the night. "Senior sister." His voice was slightly cold and had the magnetism of a cello. Ji Xinyu froze. This face was completely different from Xie Fengliu's. Xie Fengliu was naturally tall and handsome, but he had a likable baby face, which made him more adorable. On the other hand, the black-robed man's facial features were extremely deep and well-defined. He was extraordinarily handsome, especially his eyes. The corners of his eyes were slightly raised, and his eyes were as black as an abyss, as if they wanted to pull people in. At this moment, those eyes were looking at her. His eyelashes that were as dense as fans gently fluttered, giving off a hint of charm and enchantment. "Senior sister, don't you recognize me?" Ji Xinyu's fingers gripped the hilt of the moon god sword, looking at those eyes. "You're not little Jiao." Her little Jiao wasn't so charming and bewitching. His body also didn't have such a cold aura. Chapter 30-45. The black-robed man sighed softly and slowly took a step forward. Ji Xinyu subconsciously retreated. She had already felt the powerful demonic aura of this black-robed man. This person's cultivation was extremely profound. With her martial arts, she would probably be defeated within a few dozen moves. Furthermore, there was Huang Qinglu, whose strength was unknown, standing beside him. The probability of her defeating the two of them was 0. It seemed that she could only escape. While Ji Xinyu was dealing with them, she had already begun to carefully plan an escape plan. The black-robed man was tall, and had been looking down at her pretty face. He slowly said, "If I'm not little Nine, then who am I?" Ji Xinyu's mind was spinning rapidly as she replied, "I don't care who you are." The moon god's sword in her hand seemed to struggle uncontrollably, and even swiped a screen in her mind. However, Ji Xinyu's attention was focused on the two people in front of her. She did not notice the moon god's sword's small movements at all. After she finished speaking, she suddenly flicked her fingertips, and a cloud of smoke suddenly spread out from her body, covering her figure. This smoke talisman was given to her by Rongyue Tianlan, who said that it was best to use it when escaping. At that time, she was somewhat disdainful because she never ran when fighting with others. She always wanted to fight to the end. However, she could not continue fighting now. She had to quickly escape and inform the people in Ziyun's sect. While the smoke dispersed, she wanted to use her martial arts to escape. She took the opportunity to jump back, but unexpectedly, her waist suddenly went numb and her entire body froze. There was someone behind her, and they took advantage of the situation to plot against her. Her body slowly fell into someone's arms. At the moment when she was about to faint, she saw her master's face. When Ji Xinyu woke up again, she found herself in a rather exquisitely decorated room. There were famous landscape paintings hanging on the wall, and the furniture in the room was made of precious agarwood. Below her was a milky white ivory bed, and her body was covered with a cloud silk quilt. Everywhere was a low-key luxury. Ji Xinyu was not unfamiliar with this room. She had been here a few times before. This was Xie Fengliu's room. However, most of the furniture inside had been changed. If it were not for the painting on the wall, Ji Xinyu would not have recognized it. That painting was something she had given to Xie Fengliu back then. Because this brat liked to pretend to be cultured back then, Ji Xinyu happened to find this painting, so she gave it to him to make him look good. However, Ji Xinyu did not have the time to look at the changes in the room. The moment she opened her eyes, her gaze focused on Xie Juk, who was sitting at the table not far away. Her fingers clenched under the blanket. There was a clam shell on the table. Inside the clam shell, a moonlight pearl was shining faintly, illuminating the furnishings in the room. It also made Xie Juk's black hair and black clothes shine like satin, but his hands were as fair as jade. He was concocting kung fu tea, and his movements were as smooth as flowing water. He seemed to have noticed that Ji Xinyu had woken up, and turned to look at her, his voice gentle. "Xinyu, do you want some tea?" Ji Xinyu slowly sat up on the bed. Her acupuncture points were sealed, so even though she could move, She could only sit up normally. The successive shocks of the truth made her, who had always been calm, pale. She stared at Xie and ignored the tea he handed over. She asked straightforwardly, "What do you want?" Xie was still holding the tea in front of her. He looked at her with a faint smile. "Senior sister, you don't even want to drink the tea I brewed." Chapter 3046. When he smiled, he looked a little like Xie Fenglu from back then. It was as if he was still little Xie, the little Xie who often made her laugh, and wanted to shelter her from the wind and rain, even though he didn't have thick wings. Ji Xinyue liked to drink tea, and little Xie was good at making tea, even better than the tea masters in the palace. In the past, every time they met, Xie Fenglu would always make tea for her. Ji Xinyue liked his filial piety. Once, Ji Xinyue sighed while drinking his tea. "Little Jiu, I'm used to drinking this. You'll make my appetite picky. What if I can't drink it in the future? It's best if you become picky. Senior sister, how about you let little Jiu make tea for you for the rest of your life?" Xie Fenglu's eyes sparkled at that time. He was half joking and half serious. The past could not be traced back. A month ago, there was no gap between the siblings, but now, she waved her hand and knocked over his tea. "You're not little Xie." This person did not look or speak like Xie Fenglu. How could her junior brother become him? The teacup fell to the ground with a crisp sound. Xie lowered his eyes and looked at the broken teacup. A moment later, he smiled and waved his sleeve. The fragments on the ground disappeared, and even the spilled tea disappeared. He sat down by the bed. Ji Xinyue quietly shrank back, trying to stay as far away from him as possible. Xie didn't seem to see her actions. He looked at her with a smile and said indifferently, "I'm indeed not little Xie. He's just a wisp of my main soul. Now that I've revived, he'll naturally return to me. But don't worry, although our temperaments and appearances are different, our preferences are the same. He likes you, I like you too. No matter what, I won't harm you." His long and narrow eyes narrowed like a fox's. Ji Xinyue's heart sank. She had thought of all kinds of possibilities. For example, he was still Xie Fenglu, but his temperament had changed greatly after he became a demon. For example, Xie Fenglu had been refined by this demon and became its nourishment. But she didn't expect Xie Fenglu to be just a wisp of Xie soul. No wonder their appearances and temperaments were different. If a soul reincarnated on its own, then this soul had to be extremely powerful. Only then could it directly transform into the main soul during the process of reincarnation and replenish the other souls on its own. Only then could it reincarnate into a complete person. Now that Xie had revived and all his souls had returned, little Jiu had completely disappeared and would never return. Ji Xinyu felt a sharp pain in her heart. She clenched her fists so tightly that they turned pale. She pursed her lips and stared at him. "The little fox in the crystal cave was you." Xie paused for a moment then smiled. "Xinyu is really smart. That is indeed my true body." Ji Xinyu clenched her fists again and asked all the questions in her heart. "Didn't your soul already scatter? How could he have left his true body behind? Who locked you in there?" Xie turned his head to look at her. "It seems like you know a lot. Back then, I fell for the tricks of the immortal realm, and my soul was destroyed by 81 bolts of golden lightning. It was Huang Luqing who used a secret technique and spent hundreds of years to gather a small portion of my soul and condense my true body again. But in the end, my soul was shattered and incomplete. So at that time, I was no different from an ordinary fox and could easily die. And the crystal cave in this beast valley is a place where natural spiritual energy condenses. It's the most suitable place for me to recuperate, so Huang Luqing locked my chaotic true body there." Chapter 3047. So that's how it is. That meteorite chain is an immortal treasure. Isn't Huang Luqing a demon? How could he have such a treasure? Xinyue, Sharkman is not divided into immortals and demons. He can become an immortal or a demon with a single thought. And the meteorite chain is not divided into good and evil. It is a divine item, but it is not an immortal artifact. Ji Xinyue was speechless. So her master had lied to her back then. She gritted her teeth. Then what about my master? He is your. Xiajuk leaned against the bedpost and sighed softly. He is the left protector of the demon sect. But he clearly cultivates the immortal Tao. I know that demons have spells to hide their auras, and can blend into the human world without being discovered. However, that can only fool people with lower cultivation in the immortal world. Those who have cultivated to the level of a divine lord, or above, can see through it. And the people he has befriended all these years are experts from the immortal world. How could he not reveal any flaws? This was also what Ji Xinyue could not figure out the most after knowing her master's identity. Her master was clearly not a demon. He also taught his disciples immortal techniques. Why? Why was he a demon? And the highest protector of the demon sect. If she had not seen it with her own eyes, Ji Xinyue would not have believed it even if she was beaten to death. After discovering that her master was a demon's subordinate, heavenly lightning was not enough to describe Ji Xinyue's state at that time. No matter how calm and collected she was still a little stunned when she encountered such an earth-shattering matter. If she had not been so distraught at that time, she would not have been so easily schemed against and brought here. Xiajuk poured a cup of tea and handed it to her. Are you very puzzled? Then drink this cup of tea first, and I will tell you the reason. Ji Xinyue looked down at the tea in her hand and sneered. She casually threw it. You don't have to say it. The teacup flew out, but this time, before it landed on the ground, Xiajuk rolled up his sleeve and pulled it back. In the blink of an eye, it landed in his hand, and not a single drop of tea spilled out. Xiajuk looked at her with a faint smile. Are you afraid that I will do something to this tea and drug you? Ji Xinyue closed her eyes and did not reply. Xiajuk took a sip of the teacup. If it's poisonous, poison me to death first. He finished the cup of tea in a few gulps, then showed the bottom of the cup to Ji Xinyue. Are you relieved now? Ji Xinyue's voice was cold as she said frankly, I'm worried. If you did something to the tea, you can take the antidote in advance. You'll be fine after drinking it, and it might even be beneficial to your health. I can't drink it. I don't know what kind of trap I'll fall into. So, you don't have to waste any effort on the tea. Xiajuk. He looked at her with a complicated gaze for a long time and sighed. You really are. Forget it. I've known you for so many years, and I know you've always been suspicious, so I don't blame you. Ji Xinyue's voice was cold. You're wrong. You and I are strangers. Xie Fenglu has been with me for so many years, but he is already dead. When she said the last few words, her heart twisted. Xiajuk turned the cup in his hand, as if he was not surprised by Ji Xinyue's words. He only smiled and said, although Xie Fenglu is a part of my soul, he is my main soul. I have all his memories, and I remember every detail of your interactions with him clearly. Even the person he loves is the one I like. Then, what's the difference between me and him? Why do you have to be so calculative? Chapter 3048. Xiajuk was a proud person and had a bad temper. He never bothered to explain anything to others, and would send them flying without a word. No matter how much he doted on his former concubines, once they offended him, they would still be cold-blooded and punished by him. Some of them would even be smashed into pieces and reincarnated. However, he had been explaining to her in a good mood. He was not even angry when she threw his cup twice. Even he did not expect himself to be so patient. Even he felt that it was strange. Perhaps it was because his soul liked her too much, to the point of not caring about gains and losses. Ji Xinyue ignored him. So what if he was the main soul? After all, he was not Xie Fenglu. She could not lump them together. Xinyue, I can sense his thoughts. He did want to save you that day, which was why he agreed to Huang Liuqing's conditions. Originally, when the main soul returned to its original position, even if the main body had some memories of the main soul, it would not have the main soul's feelings. However, perhaps his obsession with you was too strong. I felt everything he felt. I couldn't even bear to absorb all the beasts in Beast Valley. But you also absorbed most of them. Xiajuk sighed. There was no other way. If I didn't absorb them, I wouldn't have been able to recover. If I couldn't recover, I wouldn't have been able to go to Tianjing to save you. The first thing I did when I recovered that day was to rush back to find you. Unfortunately, you were no longer there. Unfortunately? Ji Shinhua asked in return. So you were still hoping that I would be trapped in that ice shell? Xiejuk heard her unfriendly tone, and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. That's not the case. That day, Huang Luqing imprisoned you there. As long as you could break it within 10 days, she would not take your life. That was why Xie Fenglu agreed to Huang Liuqing's conditions to save you. This was his obsession before he died. This obsession was so strong that even I felt it. Ji Xinyue's heart ached again. She believed this. She believed that Xie Fenglu would not harm her that day. It turned out that Xie Fenglu had sacrificed himself to become Xiejuk for her. The image of the baby-faced Xie Fenglu flashed across her mind. She remembered the pale face he had when he had plotted against her in the sea. Even though he had been controlled, the shock, anger, and panic in his eyes had not been faked. Ji Xinyu felt as if her heart had been stabbed by a knife, slowly twisting and turning in pain. However, her heart that had sunk to the bottom of the ice when she discovered the truth was now slightly warm. Little Nine didn't actually betray her. Little Nine had always been that Little Nine, and would not change even in death. She took a deep breath and glanced at Xiejuk in front of her. If he killed Xiejuk and tore apart his soul, would he be able to revive Xie Fenglu? Perhaps because her gaze was too unfriendly, Xiejuk propped his chin up and looked at her. Actually, I'm also a little puzzled. What are you wondering about? Why didn't you scream? Xiejuk slowly said. You're awake now. Since you already know the truth, and can communicate with me normally, why don't you shout and tell me all about my schemes? I thought the first thing you would do when you woke up would be to scream. Ji Shinhua sneered. Since you're prepared, you must have covered your courtyard with some kind of barrier. I'm afraid that no one outside will hear anything even if I shout until my throat is hoarse. Why should I waste my energy? Xiejuk. He could not help but sigh. Although it's easy to deal with smart people, it's also less fun. Chapter 3049. He couldn't help but sigh. Although it's easy to deal with smart people, it's also less fun. Actually, I've always been looking forward to the moment you wake up and scream. Then, you realize that you can't call for anyone. Pervert. Xiejuk held her hand, his eyes flashing. That's perverted? Actually, I can do even more perverted things. He exerted force on his wrist, and pulled her into his embrace. He lowered his head and kissed her. Ji Shinhua had lost all her strength, so she was naturally no match for him. However, just because she couldn't use her psychokinesis didn't mean that her movements would be slow. Her palm reached out in time. Xiejuk's passionate kiss landed on her palm. His eyes darkened, and he tightened his grip on her other hand. He was quite strong, and Ji Shinhua's wrist was almost broken by him. Her face turned pale. However, she was smiling. Xiejuk, I know I'm no match for you now, and I can't stop you from doing anything. However, my life is my own. I'll use it to bet with you. She was clearly in so much pain that her forehead was covered in sweat, but her words were sonorous and powerful. The light in Xiejuk's eyes changed several times. His fingers loosened slightly, but he refused to let go. Are you threatening me with your life? Xie Fenglu might fall for this trick of yours, but I won't. Besides, with my magic power, even if you die, I can still bring you back to life. Even if I can't, it's not a bad thing to imprison your soul by my side. At that time, you might be able to watch me slaughter everyone in the Sanskrit continent, and make your father and mother tremble and beg for mercy at my feet. He said a bunch of ruthless words. Ji Shinhua was unmoved. She only said a few words. Why don't you try? Xiejuk was speechless. The atmosphere in the room was extremely quiet. Even the air seemed to be so heavy that it was about to drip water. Xiejuk stared at her. As the Devil Master, his aura was fully released, causing the temperature in the room to drop. There was a tank of fish in his room. Under the pressure of his aura, the fish in the tank trembled and stuck to the walls of the tank. A moment later, their bellies flipped over. Ji Shinhua was in his arms, so she naturally felt the invisible aura from his body. Her psychokinesis was sealed. and her heart was pounding so hard that it felt like it was going to jump out of her chest. However, she remained fearless and held her head high. She did not lose to him in terms of aura. After a while, just as Ji Shenyue felt that her heart was about to burst, Xiejuk finally let go of her hand. "You are the most stubborn woman I have ever seen." Ji Shenyue took a step back and leaned against the wall. She closed her eyes and stopped talking. Xiejuk's gaze landed on her wrist, and his pupils constricted. Because of his strong grip, there was already a bruise there. It was a shocking sight. He suddenly reached out and grabbed her wrist again. Ji Shenyue suddenly opened her eyes and looked at him warily. He coughed and said, "I'll apply some ointment for you." He took out a small bottle and was about to apply the ointment on her wrist. Ji Shenyue retracted her hand and said indifferently, "I'll do it myself." She did not use Xiejuk's ointment, but took out her own from her storage space. The sparkling blue bottle looked exquisite and pleasing to the eye. Rongyue Tianlan had forced it on her. He had said that she was too easy to get injured, so he had forced more than 10 bottles of secret ointment for her to use in emergencies. Now it had come in handy. When Xiejuk saw the small bottle, his handsome face darkened. Chapter 30-50. He recognized that it was Rongyue Tianlan's medicine. He found it particularly glaring. Pa! The medicine in Ji Shenyue's hand fell to the ground and shattered. The liquid inside spilled all over the ground. "You!" Ji Shenyue raised her head and glared at him. Xiejuk also looked down at her like a provocative child. "What about me? If you want to apply medicine, you can only apply mine. My medicine is no worse than his." Ji Shenyue felt that this person was simply unreasonable. She simply closed her eyes and ignored him. Thoughts of escaping were racing through her mind, but she couldn't think of anything for a moment. She had encountered countless dangerous situations in her life, but she had always managed to avert them. Only this time she felt a little hopeless. Her wrist was suddenly snatched away. She struggled but couldn't break free. She opened her eyes to take a look. Xiejuk was sitting on the side of her bed. He held her hand with one hand and applied his ointment with the other. The originally burning wound felt cool, and the pain lessened a lot. The pearl-like moonlight reflected off half of Xiejuk's face, making it look as delicate as jade porcelain. His curly and thick eyelashes formed a half-moon silhouette. His skin color was still a little light, especially when set off by his black hair. His face was as white as snow. The shape of his lips was very beautiful. When he pursed them slightly, 2 shallow dimples appeared on his cheeks. Ji Shenyue originally wanted to pull her hand back, but when she saw the dimples on his cheeks, her heart skipped a beat. Xie Xiaojiu also had dimples on his face, and the shape of the dimples was exactly the same as Xiejuk's. Usually, when this kid had a smiling face and asked her for a favor, it was easy for his 2 dimples to appear. He looked exceptionally likable. "How did your main soul escape and become Xie Xiaojiu?" Ji Shenyue blurted out. Xiejuk raised his head and glanced at her. "Probably because of you, Ji Shenyue." "What did it have to do with her?" Xiejuk replied as he applied the ointment for her. "Back then, you talked with my original body for so long, and told me a lot of things about the outside world. At that time, my soul hadn't completely gathered, so my soul was very unstable. Accidentally, the main soul escaped while I was unconscious. It gathered the other souls and reincarnated as Xie Fenglu. After all, he had my aura. When his mother gave birth to him, she dreamed of dark clouds above her head. Mortals didn't know that it was my dark aura. They thought that he was a child full of bad luck, so they abandoned him not long after he was born, leaving him an orphan. Xie Fenglu had no memory of what happened before he was abandoned. He remembered that he was an abandoned child, and was raised by an old beggar. It seemed that after the return of the main soul, his memories had become clearer. He had even recovered the memories of when he was just born. "Shenyu, this shows that we are still fated. Xie Fenglu was born because of you and died because of you. Furthermore, he was able to meet you after he became an abandoned child, and was brought to the purple cloud sect by you. You two should be a match made in heaven. What is Rongyue Tianlan?" He's not worthy of you at all. Also, he's not sincere to you. He only uses you as a substitute for his former wife. After Siejuk finished applying the ointment, he lowered his head and blew on it. His breath was cold as it blew on her wrist. She felt the hair on her wrist tremble. She automatically ignored Siejuk's first few words, but his last sentence made her heart sink. Chapter 3051. Former wife. He once had a wife. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. Is that so? Her tone was indifferent, and it was obvious that she did not believe him. She did not believe this. Rongyue Tianlan had clearly been engaged to her when he was more than 1,000 years old. It was impossible for him to marry before breaking off the engagement with her. Rongyue Tianlan was not that kind of person. If he really had a sweetheart and wanted to marry her, the first thing he would do would be to break off the engagement with her. After that, he would go back and marry that woman. That's right, he had indeed come back to break off the engagement. But didn't he pursue her again? Therefore, even if he had a sweetheart, she should not exist. Otherwise, he would have run back to find his sweetheart after breaking off the engagement with her, and would not have pestered her. At most, he did have a sweetheart, but that sweetheart had already passed away. You don't believe me? Siejuk raised his eyebrows and looked at her. What happened between him and me has nothing to do with you. Ji Shinhua directly drew the line. Siejuk laughed and leaned back against the side of the bed like her. The two of them lay side by side on the bed. Ji Shinhua frowned and moved in. Siejuk suddenly held one of her hands. Do you still remember the mirage we saw in the Tianjing Ocean? Do you still remember that woman in white? Ji Shinhua's heart tightened slightly. She remained calm. So what if I remember? Siejuk looked at her and smiled. There was a hint of evil in his smile. That woman was his confidante. Her name was Yunqi. He met her in the Tianxi continent, and has been by his side for nearly 3,000 years. He doted on her very much and did many things for her. No matter what she liked, he would always think of ways to do it for her. The scene in the mirage flashed through Ji Shinhua's mind. She took a light breath and said indifferently, Don't tell me you're saying that Yunqi is Rongyue Tianlan's sweetheart? If his sweetheart was Yunqi, then since they had been together for more than 3,000 years, why did Rongyue Tianlan only think of breaking off the engagement now? Shouldn't he have taken Yunqi far away after breaking off the engagement? Then why did he come back and pester Ji Shinhua? Had his head been squeezed by the door? Therefore this was not true. Rongyue Ishinlin and Yunqi were probably just friends. It was only right for friends to help each other. Just like herself, didn't she have a few Jianghu friends around her? She was willing to do anything for them. Ji Shinyu originally wanted to refute him in her heart, but she accidentally said what she meant. Siejuk chuckled. There's a reason for this. Yunqi was indeed his sweetheart. The two of them had been inseparable since they were on the Tianxi continent. However, Rongyue Tianlan encountered a problem during his closed-door training many years ago, and a part of his soul escaped. That soul was reincarnated on another continent, and there, he fell in love with a princess named Jiyu. The two of them seemed to have some twists and turns, and Princess Jiyu married him. He glanced at Ji Shinhua and continued, later on, probably because of Rongyue Tianlan, that princess passed away with hatred. Rongyue Tianlan's soul also died of depression not long after, and returned to his body, allowing him to have the memories of that soul. He felt deeply sorry for Jiyu. He didn't know how he had found out that Jiyu had reincarnated in the Fanning continent, so he had made an agreement with Yunqi that he would return to the Fanning continent to break off the engagement and search for Jiyu's whereabouts. He wanted to make it up to her. Then he found you in Tianyue. Chapter 3052. He can't be sure which one of you is his former wife, so he has an ambiguous relationship with both of you, holding this and that. Siejuk was very talented and proficient in psychological tactics. His words were half true and half false, but they also seemed to be wrong. Ji Shenhua clenched her fists slightly. She recalled the series of events that Rongyue Tianlan had treated Tianyu and her. It was indeed like like he was trying to determine something between the two sisters. And he had initially decided on Tianyu, Jiyu. For some reason, Ji Shenyue felt an inexplicable heartache when she said this name, and she even subconsciously tried to avoid it. However, her appearance was different from Tianyu's. How did he determine that? Under such circumstances, Ji Shenyue did not want to think about this relationship problem. Now was not the time to care about these feelings. Therefore, she forced herself to pull her thoughts out of those messy guesses. She knew why Xie was saying all this. She smiled coldly and said indifferently, "Your story is very well made up. Whether it's true or false, I don't care." He came to the Sanskrit continent to find his wife's reincarnation, which proves that he is still very affectionate and a lover. I like it. Xie did not expect her to be so obsessed. He looked at her. Lover. If he was a lover, he wouldn't have such deep feelings for Yunqi. He's only looking for his wife's reincarnation to make it up to her. He doesn't really want to love her anymore. He and Yunqi had an agreement. Yunqi's bird is a soul-searching bird, and it can find people based on their souls. Yunqi risked her life to help him go to another continent to detect Jiyu's aura. Then, she transmigrated here to test you and Tianyu. He had already tested Tianyu, and Tianyu was not. You didn't see how relaxed he was at that time. Then, he brought Yunqi to find you and test your. Ji Shenyue closed her eyes. You're really good at making up stories. Continue. This story was indeed quite touching, but how could Xie know so much? It was obvious that he was making it up. Xie knew what she was thinking when he saw her expression. He clenched his fists and suddenly sneered. You don't believe me? All right. Looks like you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. I'll let you see for yourself. He turned around and jumped off the bed. He sat on the chair and drew some charms in the air with his 2 fingers. Suddenly, he pointed his finger in the air, and a ripple-like wall slowly appeared in the room. The wall shook a few times, and an image gradually appeared. It was the scene that Xie had seen when he was following Rong Yuetian. There were even sounds. However, perhaps because Xie cultivation was not up to par, the sounds and images were intermittent and blurry. However, he could still guess the latter sentence based on the first sentence. Of course, Xie had made some changes to the image. For example, in the image, Rong Yuetianlan promised Yunqi that if the test revealed that Ji Shenyue was his former wife, he would marry her and continue their relationship. However, he wouldn't let Yunqi down. After marrying Ji Shenyue, he would marry Yunqi. It would be enough if he only married the 2 of them in his lifetime. 1 husband and 2 wives, free and unfettered. Yunqi, who was still a little worried, sighed faintly. What if that Princess Xinyu isn't Jiyu? Are you still going to find Jiyu? Chapter 3053. Rong Yuetianlan shook his head. If she isn't, then it proves that Jiyu and I are not fated to be together. I won't look for her again. If I meet her again in the future, I will compensate her with something else. Then what about Xinyu? What do you plan to do then? Yunqi asked. Rong Yuetianlan bitterly smiled and shook his head. Since she isn't Jiyu, I have no reason to marry her. Of course, my previous actions may have caused her to have other thoughts. I will compensate her with other favors. He held Yunqi's hand again. Yunqi, you and I have been together for more than 3,000 years. I like you the most. At that time, I will return to the heavenly bestowal continent with you and never come back. The scene continued to play, sometimes clear and sometimes blurry. She saw Rong Yuetianlan riding a cloud with Yunqi in the air. They first met Ji Tianyue. After confirming that Ji Tianyue wasn't Jiyu, the 2 of them rode a cloud again, heading in the direction of Carefree Island. Finally, the scene of Rong Yuetianlan and Yunqi descending from the cloud and running to a restaurant to eat appeared on the screen. Yunqi ate slowly, and Rong Yuetianlan drank a few cups to accompany her. A handsome man and a beautiful woman sat facing each other. Countless people were envious to death. The scene even showed the envious whispers of other customers in the restaurant. They said things like a match made in heaven, a jade couple, and so on. Yunqi and Rong Yuetianlan obviously heard it. Yunqi's cheeks turned slightly red, and Rongyue Tianlan looked at her and smiled. Everything was understood without words. Crash! The water wall that was playing the scene suddenly collapsed. The scene disappeared, and water flowed all over the room. This spell seemed to consume a lot of willpower. After the water wall collapsed, Xiejuk's sitting body swayed. Not only was his face pale, but even his lips were white. Shenyu, you don't believe me after seeing this? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. How could you see these scenes? Besides, Tianyue has always been in the cold palace of Nantian Palace. Why would she run to that small city for no reason? She was also bullied by a few wretched men. This scene is also your doing. Xiejuk. His eyes narrowed dangerously. You still don't believe me? Alright, I'll tell you everything. I couldn't find you in the crystal sky ocean. Through restoring some images, I found out that it was Rongyue Tianlan who saved you. But I couldn't find out where he hid you. So I could only use a trick to lure him out. Rongyue Tianlan had given Ji Tianyue a special sound transmitting talisman, and promised her that she would save her no matter what. So I got Ji Tianyue out. He steeled his heart, and told her everything about how he and Huang Luqing had brought Ji Tianyue to the ice crevice. This time, he didn't lie at all, nor did he make up any lies. Ji Xinyu sat under the blanket. Her face was a little pale, and her eyes were lowered. No one knew what she was thinking. The room fell into silence again. A moment later, she raised her head and looked straight at Xiejuk. Where's Tianyu? In the end, what happened to her? Xiejuk froze. He did not expect her to be concerned about this under such circumstances. He paused for a moment. She's dead. A voice suddenly came from outside the door. Following that, Huang Luqing pushed open the door and walked in. Xiejuk frowned, and his voice turned cold. Huang Luqing, who let you in? Huang Luqing bowed to him and said indifferently, Young master, she will find out about this sooner or later. Why don't you tell her now? Chapter 3054. He looked at the water stains on the ground, and raised his hand to draw an incantation. His technique was actually similar to Xiejuk's earlier technique. The water stains on the ground instantly formed a water mirror in the air. In the water mirror, what happened after Rongyue Tianlan and the others left Ji Tianyue behind appeared. This time, the scene was exceptionally clear, and even the conversation inside could be clearly heard. Ji Shenyue watched as Ji Tianyue cried, and threw a tantrum after Rongyue Tianlan left, to the appearance of Xiejuk and the others, and finally died tragically under Xiejuk's palm. Ji Shenyue's face turned completely pale this time. The scene that Huang Luqing had created was obviously omitted by Xiejuk. Moreover, the scene in the scene, as well as the reactions of Ji Tianyue and the others, was very realistic. There should not be any exaggeration. Moreover, the overlap with the scenes that Xiejuk had created was extremely high. Even the clothes and expressions of the characters inside were exactly the same. If the scenes created by the two of them were fake, it was impossible for the overlap to be so high. Furthermore, when Xiejuk had created that scene, Huang Luqing had not come in yet. She had not seen it at all. Ji Xinyu had a photographic memory. She deliberately compared the small branches and leaves in the two videos in her mind. For example, the degree of distortion of the trunk of the tree behind Ji Tianyu, the thickness of the branches, and the distribution of the tree branches. Other things could be imitated, but if these special details were not real, it was impossible for the big tree in the two videos to be exactly the same. If these were real, then the other scenes that Xiejuk had played were probably real too. Shenyue, do you believe me now? Xiejuk looked at her with bright eyes. Ji Shenyue slowly raised her head. There seemed to be flames dancing in her beautiful eyes. I don't believe you. She stretched out her hand toward Xiejuk. Where's my voice transmission talisman? Give it back to me. I want to contact Tianyue. As soon as she woke up, she realized that all the voice transmission talismans on her body had disappeared. It was obvious that Xiejuk had taken them away. She only had the blood-red voice transmission talisman left on her body. She did not know why it had been left behind, but it was useless. Xiejuk frowned. To prevent her from leaking the secret, Sect Master Ziyin had already taken away all the voice transmission talismans on her. He looked at Ji Xinyu's small white hand and turned his head away. I'll return the sound transmission talisman to you tomorrow afternoon. At that time, his recovery plan would be complete, and he wouldn't have to worry about her leaking any more secrets. Ji Xinyu's face was as white as snow. She sneered. Are you afraid that I'll leak the secret? Just give me that pink sound-transmitting talisman. You should know that it's only for contacting Tianyu, and can't contact anyone else. Xiejuk. What? You don't dare to do this? If you don't even dare to do this, then it's enough to prove that everything you showed me just now is fake. It's fake. I don't believe a single word. Xiejuk stared at her for a moment before turning to instruct Huang Luqing. Go and ask the left guardian for that pink voice transmission talisman. Huang Luqing frowned. Young master. It's all right. I recognize that voice transmission talisman. It can only be used to contact Ji Tianyue. Hurry up and go. Xiejuk was impatient. Huang Luqing. He took a deep look at Xiejuk before turning around and leaving. A moment later, he returned with the pink sound transmission talisman. He tossed it to Ji Xinyue, who immediately contacted Ji Tianyue. Of course, there was no response from the other side. It wasn't that the other side refused to pick it up, but there was no response. The pink sound transmission talisman didn't even flash. Chapter 3055. There was only one possibility for such a situation. The other party was already dead, and the voice transmission talisman forged from each other's aura would completely lose its effect. Ji Xinyue stared at the voice transmission talisman in her hand, as if she was sensing something. A moment later, the voice transmission talisman in her palm emitted flames and turned into ashes. It turned out that Ji Tianyue's soul had also been dispelled. Dispelled? What a vicious method! Although Ji Tianyue had done a few things to her later on, they weren't really evil. It was just a child's jealousy that made her mischievous. She had severed her relationship with this little sister out of disappointment. However, she had still doted on her for hundreds of years. Now not only had she died a tragic death, her soul had also been dispelled forever. This was too much. Ji Xinyue's face was ashen. Why did you kill her? Xiejuk. Ah. Why did you kill Tianyue? Ji Xinyue asked angrily. Xiejuk did not expect her to be concerned about this. He was stunned for a moment before frowning slightly. That kind of trash no longer has any value. She even schemed against you. Why keep such a person alive? Used again. Ji Xinyue clenched her fists. Xiejuk, in your eyes, is the relationship between people only about using and being used? Don't you have any kinship or friendship? Master was used by you, senior brothers were also used by you. You don't care about their lives at all. To think that they usually treat you so well. In the past, when you were in danger, they were the first to rush up and save you. They treated you as a real brother, but you only wanted their lives. The more she spoke, the angrier she became. Her voice became louder and louder, and her body trembled. She was truly furious. Xiejuk's expression changed. He opened his mouth and was about to say something when Huang Luqing suddenly stepped forward. With a flick of her finger, a wisp of wind flashed and sealed Ji Xinyue's sleeping acupoint, causing her to fall asleep again. What are you doing? Xiejuk frowned unhappily. Huang Luqing bowed to him. You can't let her nonsense mess up young master's mind. Young master, you still have a big battle tomorrow. Just now you blindly used the mirror technique and used your vitality. You must quickly meditate and recover. You can't delay for a moment. Xiejuk understood this point. He first carried the unconscious Ji Xinyue and laid her down on the bed, tucking her in the corner of the blanket. Then, he stood up and casually threw a futon on the ground, wanting to sit on it. I'll just meditate here to recover. Huang Luqing. He suppressed his anger and raised his hand to rub his throbbing temples. Young master, this meditation is no small matter. There must be no external interference. Moreover, it would require an ice room. Young master, your recovery is the most important thing right now. As for this Princess Ji Xinyue, you and her have a long future ahead of you. You'll have plenty of time to look after her in the future, right? Young master, the bigger picture is more important. Xiejuk fell silent for a moment. How long will it take for me to recover? Huang Luqing pondered for a moment. About 2 hours. Xiejuk nodded. All right, I'll come back in 2 hours. Keep an eye on her, and don't let anything happen to her. He turned around and strode away. The room became quiet again. Huang Luqing stood in the middle of the room, her gaze landing on the unconscious Ji Xinyue. Her gaze was faintly complicated. Originally, young master had always been straightforward when dealing with women. The women he fancied who disobeyed him were either slapped to death or raped by him. Chapter 3056. However, he had paid an unprecedented amount of patience for this Ji Xinyue. After being provoked by her with a few words, he actually used the mirror technique, regardless of the consequences. If he had not discovered it in time, there would have been a huge mess tomorrow, causing all his previous efforts to be in vain. This woman had a great influence on the young master. This was definitely not a good thing. Huang Luqing clenched his fist slightly, as if he wanted to do something, but he endured it. It was easy for him to kill her now, but if the young master knew, he would definitely fight him to the death. He was not afraid of risking his life, but now that things had come to this, he even had the heart to risk his life with the young master. He was afraid that once Ji Xinyue died, Xiejuk would risk his life to gather her soul and revive her. At that time, it would definitely delay tomorrow's plan. If he destroyed her soul, with Xiejuk's current feelings for her, he would definitely become enemies with her. Therefore, he could not touch this woman at the moment. However, this woman was extremely fierce and had good martial arts. She also had deep feelings for her senior brothers. If the young master successfully recovered tomorrow, her senior brothers would definitely not be able to protect her. She would probably think of ways to take revenge, and Xiejuk might not be able to subdue her in a short period of time. His eyes darkened as he slowly walked to the Moonlight Pearl. He pressed his palm on the Moonlight Pearl, and a wave of blue light flashed on the Moonlight Pearl before disappearing. The Moonlight Pearl did not change, and still emitted a faint white light. After doing all this, he turned around and was about to leave when he suddenly stopped. Looking at Ji Xinyue's sleeping face, a dark light flickered in his eyes. He could not get the young master to stay away from this woman. And this woman was so dangerous. She was a huge variable. Perhaps he should completely cripple her cultivation and make her an ordinary woman. That way, no matter how much the young master doted on her, she would not be able to stir up trouble. He turned around and approached Ji Xinyue's bed, raising his palm. "What are you doing?" A cold voice suddenly came from behind him. Huang Luqing slowly turned his head and saw Sect Master Zi Yun leaning against the door, looking at him indifferently. With this sect master here, Huang Luqing naturally would not do anything to Ji Xinyue. He waved the fan in his hand and said, "I just want to see if she's really unconscious or just faking it." As he spoke, he had already reached the door. When he passed by Sect Master Zi Yun, he paused and said, "I'll leave this place to you. I'm going to see the young master." With a meaningful smile, he turned and walked out. Sect Master Zi Yun stood in place for a moment, then slowly walked to Ji Xinyue's bed. He lowered his head and looked at her for a moment, then sighed. Little 8. This disciple was not accepted for the mission, but because he truly liked this child. It was because he truly liked her that he accepted her as his disciple. Just now, when he had plotted against her in the Beast Valley, when she had slowly collapsed, he had seen her eyes. She had looked at him with eyes full of despair and disbelief. That kind of gaze pierced him. He naturally knew how big of a blow this matter was to Ji Xinyue, so he couldn't bear to let her know, because some sacrifices were destined to be made, and it was a task that he could not shake off. He did not want Ji Xinyue to get too close to her senior brothers. When he took her in, his other disciples had already finished their apprenticeship, and they did not see each other often. It was only on his birthday that these disciples would see each other, especially during the years when he taught Ji Xinyue martial arts. Other than the eldest disciple, The other disciples could only come back once a year. They were not allowed to come back usually. Chapter 3057. And at that time, Sect Master Ziyun had intentionally or unintentionally separated her from her senior brothers, not allowing them to contact each other. He thought that by doing this, Ji Xinyu's relationship with her senior brothers wouldn't be too good, just barely average. But he didn't expect that Ji Xinyu, this child, was born with a strong sense of kinship, and actually got along very well with her senior brothers. Especially after she finished her apprenticeship, she would often run over to her senior brothers' residences as guests. When he realized that something was wrong and wanted to warn her, she was already closer to them than blood brothers. Sect Master Ziyun originally wanted to hide this matter from Ji Xinyu, so when Ji Xinyu rushed back, he made her fall into a deep sleep. As long as she could sleep for 2 days, the entire matter would be settled. He could create an illusion that a blood-sucking monster had destroyed the entire Purple Cloud sect. That way, Ji Xinyu wouldn't know the truth when she woke up. At most, she would plan to take revenge for her senior brothers, but she wouldn't feel the despair of being betrayed. But he didn't expect that she would wake up early, and even more didn't expect that she would investigate the matter in such a short period of time. He couldn't do anything about it. Now, this kind of blow was almost fatal to her. But there was no other way out. Xinyu, I'm sorry, Master was also helpless. Sect Master Ziyun sat in front of Ji Xinyu's bed, holding one of her hands by the bed, and sighed softly. And it was at this moment that the sudden change happened. Ji Xinyu, who had been sleeping, suddenly flipped her wrist, and her fingertips directly hit Sect Master Ziyun's waist. Sect Master Ziyun was in a daze, and was caught off guard by her attack. Half of his body immediately went numb. He wanted to jump up, but Ji Xinyu was faster than him. Her finger poked a few times on his body, and as a result, Sect Master Ziyun couldn't move at all. Xinyu, his usually calm and handsome face revealed a rare look of surprise. You actually weren't asleep. Ji Xinyu jumped to the ground, her gaze landing on her master's face, flashing slightly, and then looking away, she said indifferently, "It's true that I was poked by Master, but I've already undone it." In other words, when Huang Luqing struck her sleeping acupuncture point, she had already returned to normal. She was just lying down and pretending to be asleep, and then slowly looking for an opportunity. Just now, when Huang Luqing was about to make a move on her, she naturally sensed it. On the surface, she was still sleeping, but her body was already prepared to fight to the death with the other party. She didn't expect that her master would come and stop Huang Luqing in time, allowing her to continue pretending to be asleep. Sect Master Ziyun looked at Xinyu, whose eyes were sparkling, and had mixed feelings. "Xinyu, your martial arts seems to have improved quite a bit." His acupoint sealing skills were clearly top-notch. Even a top-notch expert wouldn't be able to unseal his acupoint after a day and a night. Who would have thought that Ji Xinyu would be able to solve it in just 2 hours? And even beat him at his own game? Ji Xinyu lowered her eyes slightly. Her martial arts had indeed improved a lot compared to before, especially after cultivating on Rongyue Tianlan's small island. The effect was even more obvious, and it was even becoming more obvious. She had said so much nonsense to Xiejuk just now, because she wanted to buy time to unseal her acupoints. She did not believe the truth Xiejuk had told her at all. Compared to the safety of his senior brothers, all those emotional entanglements were nothing. For the time being, it was not in her consideration. However, even she herself did not expect that one day, she would make a move on her most respected and beloved master, and make him unable to move. Chapter 3058. Looking at her master who was sitting there, she hesitated for a moment. Then, she steeled her heart, and went to her master's storage space to search for her things. There were a lot of things in Sect Master Ziyun's storage space. It was even more complete than a large warehouse. It was undoubtedly difficult to search for a few small voice transmission talismans in such a large storage space. Not to mention that she had to be face to face with her master when searching for his storage space. This was a position that she had never thought of before. If someone looked in from outside the window now, they would think that she was being rebellious and trying to take liberties with her master. Sect Master Zi Yun naturally knew what she was searching for. He didn't say anything and just looked at her, letting her search. Being stared at like this, Ji Shenyue became even more nervous. Sweat dripped from the tip of her nose. She suddenly said, "Master, do you really have the heart to kill my senior brothers? They clearly respect you so much and spend so much effort on your birthday every year. If they hear any disrespectful words about you outside, they will rush up and fight with their lives. Are they just tools in your eyes? Master, are you being controlled by that devil Siejuk? I don't believe that you are the guardian of the devil race. You clearly hate evil the most." Ji Shenyue originally spoke to ease the awkwardness, but when she said this, her heart was touched, and her eyes couldn't help but turn red. Sect Master Ziyun's face was slightly pale, and he lowered his eyes. "Shenyue, I am indeed the left guardian of the devil race. Siejuk, he can't control me." "No, I don't believe it. You don't have any devil aura at all. How can you be a devil with so much immortal aura? Master is indeed not a devil. Master is a fallen immortal." Sect Master Zi Yun finally revealed his true identity. Ji Shenyue. Fallen immortals did exist. Fallen immortals were originally immortals, but because of something, they fell into the devil realm and became a devil. Although such a person was in the devil sect, if he didn't do anything evil, there wouldn't be any devil aura on his body. "Master, isn't cultivation good? Why would I become a devil?" "Master, look, all your disciples are also cultivating the immortal Tao. Why would he become a devil?" It was all because of love. However, he didn't want to tell Ji Shenyue this reason. He simply closed his eyes and said indifferently, "Shenyue, Master has his own difficulties." It seemed that persuasion would not work. Master had already made up his mind to use his disciples as sacrifices for the Devil Lord to recover his power. Jishin, you felt a sense of helplessness. This feeling of powerlessness spread to her limbs and bones, causing her chest to feel stifled and suffocated. It was as if there was a fire burning inside, but she couldn't find a way out. She pursed her lips and said, "Master, I'm sorry. I won't watch my senior brothers die. I'll expose this matter." Her fingertips finally touched a sound-transmitting talisman. She hurriedly took it out to take a look, and her heart was filled with joy. This sound-transmitting talisman was the Blue Star Talisman that she used to contact Rong Yuetian. She hurriedly put it into her storage space, and was about to take out other things when there was a sudden movement at the door, followed by a low cry. "Little junior sister. Feng Wuji, eldest senior brother." He actually came in, and when he saw Ji Shenyu lying in Sect Master Ziyun's arms at the door, he was dumbfounded. Ji Shenyu did not give him any time to react. With a flash of her body, she suddenly charged in his direction. Feng Wuji instinctively dodged and Ji Shenyu rushed out the door like a bolt of lightning. Chapter 3059. By the time Feng Wuji reacted and wanted to grab her, he did not even manage to grab a corner of her clothes. His expression changed. He wanted to chase after her, but was stopped by his master. "Wuji, help me unseal my acupoints." Feng Wuji quickly went over to unseal his acupoints. "Left guardian, Shenyu will definitely inform the others once she escapes. I'm afraid that tomorrow's plan will not work. We must stop her immediately. I think we should inform military advisor Huang." At this point, he could no longer continue, because the moment Sect Master Ziyun's acupoint was unsealed, he had hit his death acupoint with a backhand. He slowly fell to the ground. Before he fell, his eyes were still wide open as he stared at Grandmaster Ziyun. Why? He asked the question in his heart, but he could no longer wait for the answer. Grandmaster Ziyun looked down at his corpse and said coldly, "There's no reason. Elder Lin, I've tolerated you for a long time." Feng Wuji used to be his eldest disciple, but later on, Elder Lin of the demon race took over his body to conceal the demonic qi in his body. He was also a spy that Huang Luqing had planted beside Grandmaster Ziyun to help him recruit disciples and manage everything in the Beast Valley. Grandmaster Ziyun moved his body and went out. Ji Xinyu already had a plan in mind while she was escaping. The moment she escaped, she activated the sound transmission talisman with Rongyue Tianlan. At the most crucial moment, she thought of him first. Perhaps it was because he was sleeping in the middle of the night. The sound transmission talisman flashed for a long time, but no one picked up. Ji Xinyu was burning with anxiety. She wanted to reach out and shake the person on the other end of the sound transmission talisman awake. Rongyue Tianlan, you pig. Sleeping like a pig. She dialed twice but could not get through. She had no choice but to put it aside for now. She looked up at the sky. It was almost 5 o'clock. Even if she ran out to get help now, it would be too late. After all, the nearest sect was almost 4 hours away. It would take 8 hours to go back and forth. By then, the Great Array would have been activated. Distant water could not quench a present thirst. If she wanted to save someone, she had to take a risk. Ji Xinyu thought that as long as she raised her arm and shouted, as long as her voice was loud enough, she would be able to attract everyone to watch. At that time, she would only need to shout. That's a soul-absorbing array, a deadly array. An array set up to help Xiejuk recover his cultivation. She knew that no one would really believe her if she screamed like this. But after all, it was a matter of life and death, so they would still be suspicious. Once there was suspicion, there would be changes, and the formation would not be set up again. Then, the lives of her senior martial brothers and junior martial nephews would be saved, and the tragedy would not happen. She also knew that if she raised her arm and called for help, she would definitely attract Huang Luqing and Xiejuk to chase after her. Her own situation was worrying, but she couldn't care less right now. Her eldest senior brother had already discovered that she had run away. After he unsealed her master's acupoints, the two of them would quickly chase after her and inform Huang Luqing and Xiejuk. It would only take a moment for the four of them to chase after her. She had no time to inform her senior martial brothers one by one. She and her senior martial brothers were very close. How could she bear to watch them die? Therefore, she was going all out. Xiejuk's courtyard was a little remote. It was not close to the courtyards where the other senior martial brothers lived. There was even a large distance between them. Chapter 3060. Xiejuk's courtyard was at the top of the mountain. While the guest rooms were halfway up the mountain, Ji Xinyu's heart felt like a basin of fire was burning, causing the blood in her entire body to flow faster. She dashed down like lightning, the cold wind brushing past her cheeks. She even felt that the wind was scorching hot. Seeing that the dense mass of buildings in front of her was getting closer and closer, Ji Xinyu steeled her heart and finally shouted out. She had used her inner strength to shout out these words, so she could guarantee that her voice would reach the corners of the large building in front of her, and that everyone could hear her. After shouting, she heaved a sigh of relief and raised her hand to wipe the sweat off her forehead. No matter what she had shouted out, so everyone should have heard it, soon someone would come out. Then after she shouted, no one flew out of the large building. Even the guards did not move. It was deep into the night in the dense mass of buildings, and not a single sound could be heard. What was going on? Ji Xinyu finally arrived in front of the building. Just as she was about to charge forward and shout again, she was bounced back by a faint wave of light. When Ji Xinyu saw the light wave clearly, her heart sank to the bottom of the ground. Barrier. All the buildings here were shrouded by an invisible barrier. There was not a single gap. This kind of barrier was undoubtedly soundproof, so even if she shouted until her voice was hoarse, the people inside would not be able to hear her. Hee hee. A light laugh suddenly sounded. Ji Xinyu suddenly turned her head, and a man slowly appeared from the shadows not far away. He was dressed in a light green robe, had elegant features, and was as handsome as jade. He was like a hermit young master. Who would have thought that such a person would be the military advisor of the demon race, who killed without blinking an eye? Could he be the instigator of all this? Ji Xinyu's eyes narrowed, and she raised her hand to draw her azure saber. The moon god sword had disappeared the moment she was knocked out. Ji Xinyu had not seen it since she woke up, so she decided not to count on that random divine sword anymore. She had to rely on herself at the crucial moment. It seems that I still underestimated Princess Xinyu to be able to escape in this kind of situation. Fortunately, this military advisor made preparations early on and set up a barrier here, causing Princess Xinyu's efforts to be in vain. Huang Luqing waved his folding fan lightly as he spoke, a trace of guilt appearing on his handsome face. Ji Xinyu took a deep breath, too lazy to talk nonsense with him. The azure saber slashed directly at the barrier. Huang Luqing's eyes flashed, but she didn't have any intention of stopping her. The azure saber struck the barrier with an aura that could split mountains and sever seas, but it was as if it had struck the air. The blade had clearly cut into the barrier, but it did not make the slightest sound. Then, the knife bounced back. Ji Xinyu's fingers were numb from the rebounding force, and her entire body was cold. She couldn't open this barrier. It wasn't something she could open. This barrier could only be set up by exalted immortals, and only exalted immortals could break it. She suddenly raised her head to look at Huang Luqing. You're an exalted immortal? Huang Luqing waved his fan. Our Sharkmen doesn't cultivate the immortal Tao, so I'm not an exalted immortal, but at my level, I'm roughly at the exalted immortal realm level. This person's ability to conceal himself was really deep. Ji Xinyu knew that he usually hid his strength, but she didn't expect him to hide so much. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.